Good morning. We're going to get started with an invocation from Pastor Brian Mills of Together We Church, and that will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Connor Joseph, representing Boy Scouts Troop 4. Please stand as you are able.
Let's pray. Jesus, we're grateful for this day. We're grateful for our city. We're grateful for our city leaders. And Lord, today I just pause, and I pray you give them great leadership of David in the Bible. In that leadership, we pray for the type of wisdom as they lead forward that you gave to Solomon and the courage you gave to Joshua. Lord, that they'll stay faithful with the city. Lord, we pray for great favor on them and wisdom as they lead forward. God, we just say thank you for Oklahoma City and what you're doing in it. How prosperous of a city it is today and all that is happening in our community. And we don't take that for granted. So, God, today we just pause and say thank you, Jesus, for such a great city. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Pastor Mills, and thank you, Connor. I call this meeting of the City Council to order. There are no items from Office of the Mayor today, so we'll proceed to item 4, items from Council. We have item 4A, but neither of the authors are here, so we'll hold that and see if they arrive later, and we'll go to item 4B. This is an ordinance to be introduced and potentially adopted with an emergency, declaring a 905-day moratorium on the acceptance of new applications for signage, I believe, on Lake Hefner Parkway. I'll let Councilman Stonecipher explain.
Good morning. Thank you, Your Honor. This ties with 11-0 also, and because 11-0 does not have an emergency, we needed a moratorium to be in effect until the ordinance actually became effective, which I think, Craig, 30 days later after we passed it today. So this is kind of a Band-Aid to protect us and make sure we don't have any problems. So at this time, I'd move for approval of item 4B, please.
All right, we have a motion and a second
There you
coming.
go. Sorry.
There you go. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. And then, Councilman Stonecipher, you'd like the emergency with this as well?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I'll move for the emergency at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. But short of the emergency, right? We need 7 for an emergency. We don't have 7 members here. I'm sorry, Councilman, I should have. Candy, now that we voted, can we re-vote later?
Could we defer it till later in the agenda?
Can
please?
Can we revisit it later?
You get a separate vote on the emergency, so you could.
Well, we already did it and it failed, so.
Okay, yes, you can.
We can revisit that vote.
You can reconsider that vote.
Do we have to vote to reconsider or just have the vote again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, Mark. We'll get there. All right. 4C is a resolution, but the council members who authored it are not here today. If they arrive, we'll come back. 4D was a resolution approving travel expenses. This only does require 6 votes, so we will go ahead and do this. This is for council members Carter and Stonecipher to attend the National League of Cities. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously and with the required 6 affirmative votes. We will now move on to city manager reports. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, we have 2 reports that are on today, the development impact fee adjustments, and this is just a notification of change in the development impact fee. The ordinance sets forward that it adjusts by a construction, it's similar to CPI based upon construction index, and the increase for this year is about 1.5%. And so it's just an information item, and then the claims and payroll is on. That's all the items that we have today.
All right, thank you, Mr. City Manager. Item 6, Journal of Council Proceedings. We could take items A and B with one motion. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 7, a request for uncontested continuances. Mr. City Manager.
Starting on page 10, item 9BF, we're going to strike this item. And then on page 9, I'm sorry, BF, that's right, BF. And then on page 19, item 11V1, all of these items will be stricken from the agenda. Item C, 1812 North Villa Avenue, the owner is secured. Item J, 2136 Northwest 32nd, the owner is secured. Item N, 9641 Northeast 63rd Street, the owner has secured. And item O, 1036 Southwest 129th Street, to re-notify for a new owner. Continuing on page 20, item 11W1 on abandoned buildings. All of these are stricken from the agenda for the same purposes that were noted in the first item. Item B, 1812 North Villa Avenue. Item J, 2136 Northwest 32nd Street. Item K, 9641 Northeast 63rd Street. And item L, 1036 Southwest 129th Street. And that's all the items. Oh, I'm sorry. Page 21. Sorry, page 21. Item 11AF. We're going to strike this item as a request for an executive session, and we no longer need that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Item 8 are revocable permits, and we have none. Councilwoman Hammond, do you wish to go back to items 4A and 4C at this time?
Yes, please. I apologize. My computer time says 8:30 right now, so it sounds about 10 minutes off. So I was like, oh, I thought I was on time. Yes, so on item.
Start with 4A.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is the third of 3 meetings on this proposed ordinance change. This relates to, well, I don't know. This is community gardens. Here, go ahead.
Yes,
Go
so
ahead.
this is the item that we've sort of been working through the process, sent it to planning and some of the downtown review committees, essentially just to allow the conditional use of community gardening, urban agriculture on lots within these design districts that mirrors what we had done, I think, about 10 years ago, kind of citywide, but had sort of overlooked or didn't quite realize, but had some requests from local folks that are connected with like St. Anthony's and a church in south of St. Anthony's that is wanting to utilize some empty lots and put them to use while they're in transition to have anything built on them. So.
Okay. Well, if there's no questions or comments, we could take a motion on this ordinance. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Okay, now also returning to item 4C. Councilwoman Hammond, do you wish to explain your resolution?
Thank you. So for about 7, maybe 8 months now, we've had residents coming to City Council. I know I've had a number of phone calls, requests to meet to have a conversation about the City Council considering a resolution related to international issues, specifically requesting that we consider a resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, particularly to protect civilians, allow for humanitarian aid. And so if I can request the city clerk to read the resolution, I'd appreciate that.
resolution condemning anti-Semitic, anti-Palestinian, Islamophobic, xenophobic rhetoric and attacks across the nation and here at home, and calling for an immediate, durable, and sustained ceasefire in Gaza to protect and save human lives, which allows for humanitarian aid and the unhindered provision of goods to civilians throughout the Gaza Strip, which are indispensable to their survival as required by international humanitarian law. Whereas the City of Oklahoma City is dedicated to fostering a community that embraces diversity, values all life, and upholds the principles of equality and all human rights. And whereas since October, the State of Israel has carried out one of the deadliest military campaigns in the world, with the death toll from October 2023 surpassing any major conflict in the 21st century, with over 37,000 Palestinians slaughtered, 51% of whom are women and children, with some recent estimates indicating possibly more than 186,000 killed, with discrepancies in official numbers lagging because of the destruction of the infrastructure to account for accurate accounting. And whereas since the current aggression began, Gaza has endured collective punishment and has been largely cut off from humanitarian aid. According to the United Nations Human Rights Council, 1.5 million Palestinians have been internally displaced, and over 1 million people are facing starvation in the coming month. And whereas the State of Israel has carried out a complete siege of Gaza, creating catastrophic humanitarian conditions and unparalleled levels of violence, which have been found plausible of falling under provisions of the Genocide Convention at the International Court of Justice. And whereas the current crisis in Gaza has resulted in a level of destruction not seen since World War II due to constant bombings and crippled economy. And whereas the Council of the City of Oklahoma City believes all sovereign nations in pursuit of self-defense must comply with international humanitarian law regardless of geographic context. And whereas the Council of the City of Oklahoma City agrees that no human should be deprived of water, food, health care, and medical supplies, energy, for example, fuel and electricity, and other basic needs, and decries the deprivation thereof. And whereas the Council of the City of Oklahoma City condemns all acts of violence aimed at Israeli and Palestinian civilians and mourns the loss of all civilian and hostages' lives. Whereas the City of Oklahoma City recognizes our many Jewish and Palestinian residents who have asked city leadership to call for the protection of human life and wants to encourage our federal government to pursue a response rooted in diplomacy and de-escalation. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the City of Oklahoma City that they do hereby condemn anti-Semitic, anti-Palestinian, Islamophobic, xenophobic rhetoric and attacks across the nation and here at home. And be it further resolved by the Mayor and Council of the City of Oklahoma City that they do hereby call for an immediate, durable, and sustained ceasefire in Gaza to protect and save human lives, which allows for humanitarian aid and the unhindered provision of goods to civilians throughout the Gaza Strip, which are indispensable to their survival as required by international humanitarian law.
Thank you. Did you have anything you wanted to say, Councilwoman?
Yes, just a few comments. First, as we hear what has been said, my focal point was also for us to look at and focus on our sister cities, because we have quite a few sister cities that are also in conflict that we as a city say that we support, and that we as a city choose to say we open our arms as far as how we work with, how we share culture, how we share friendship. So as we look at one of our sister cities in particular, it is, and I know I will butcher the name because I cannot pronounce it, but Yolonoskik, Russia. It's been an ongoing war with Ukraine for 2 years. Kigali City, Rwanda, has been an ongoing conflict with neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo, and that's been going on for some time. Rio de Janeiro, as of August 2023, an armed conflict between the Brazilian state and organized criminal groups and militia has been ongoing since 2006. Not to mention what's been happening in China, which is a sister city of Haikou, China, and Peru. And the list goes on for the things that have been happening, not just in places where it has been magnified for us to see, but in places that we choose to call our sister cities. And I would hope that as a city council, that we acknowledge how these things impact not just the things that we have seen magnified on television, but those that we affectionately choose to say we share friendship with. And I just want to quote a couple of comments from this weekend. As you may or may not know, the president and our vice president had a meeting with the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. And I just want to quote from our vice president, from her comments that were televised and marked on the website from the office of the vice president. I quote, "I also expressed with the Prime Minister my serious concern about the scale of human suffering in Gaza, including the death of far too many innocent civilians, and I made clear my serious concern about the dire humanitarian situation there, with over 2 million people facing high levels of food insecurity and 500,000 people facing catastrophic levels of acute food insecurity. The first phase of the deal would bring about a full ceasefire, including withdrawals of the Israeli military from population centers in Gaza. The second phase, the Israeli military would withdraw from Gaza entirely, and it would lead to a permanent end to the hostilities. It is time for this war to end, and end in a way where Israel is secure, all the hostages are released, the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can exercise their right to freedom, dignity, and self-determination. So, to everyone who has been calling for a ceasefire and to everyone who yearns for peace, I see you and I hear you. Let's get this deal done so we can get a ceasefire to end the war. Let's bring the hostages home, and let's provide much-needed relief to the Palestinian people. Let us condemn terrorism and violence. Let us do what we can to prevent the suffering of innocent civilians, and let us condemn anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and hate of any kind, and let us work to unite our country. And I say that also in the midst of understanding another strike has also happened in Israel, and understanding that the conflict is not over. But here at home, there are things that can be done, and I know that our leaders are asking for an end to this suffering, and also asking for a two-state solution. And she did say she is committed to the path forward, and she knows that it can be hard to conceive that prospect, but the two-state solution is the only path that ensures Israel remains a secure Jewish and democratic state, and one that ensures Palestinians can finally realize the freedom, security, and prosperity that they rightly deserve. So those are not my quotes. Those are the quotes of the Vice President of the United States, but I approve that message. And I hope that, again, as a community, and we did receive letters from those who were asking for us to add extra language. And for me, also understanding, being an African descendant, the turmoil that is happening in Africa, many different countries of Africa, by Boko Haram and many others, that we also want to find freedom and restoration for the countries, again, that have not been mentioned, but also the ones that, again, we have chosen to call our sister cities and say we are friends and we share friendship.
Mayor, Your Honor, at this time, I would like to, well, let's back up a second. On November 23rd, 2021, we adopted Robert's Rules of Order to be binding on this body. And based upon Chapter 6, Section 11, at this time, it is appropriate for me to move to postpone this motion indefinitely. That way we can decline to take a position on the main question. The motion to postpone indefinitely needs a second, is debatable, and takes a majority vote to pass. A motion that is postponed indefinitely is disposed of for this meeting. At this time, I'd move to postpone the agenda motion indefinitely.
I would like discussion. I know that is part of Robert's Rules of Order for us to have a discussion period for these types of motions. I think it's important for us to actually hear from the people who signed up to speak, because of this is what democracy is supposed to look like, for people that have signed up to speak to have their say. And then if we have to take up that motion, that would be fine.
I will tell you, Mayor, that debate is allowed on the main question. However, the debate is supposed to be with the members unless the mayor seeks to allow the audience to speak. And so that's what the research shows based upon the 12th edition of Robert's Rules of Order. Thank you.
So you're talking about the main question now. We now have a motion on the table, and I'll consult Kenny. So does this motion to postpone indefinitely have priority over everything else?
It does.
Yes.
Is it, these people didn't sign up to speak on that motion, obviously. I mean, that's inherent, but I'm sure they'd like to speak on it perhaps. Is this debatable by the public, or is this particular motion?
It says it's debatable, and so debate is usually among the members of the body.
Okay. Well, I mean, you don't think it's out of order to allow people to speak? I guess maybe that's the question.
My research shows that this is your agenda, and you can allow people to speak, and I have no problem with people speaking.
Okay.
But my motion takes precedence and should be voted on.
As soon as that's over and
Yes.
after debate?
Yes, sir.
on the motion.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We'll debate this maybe after we hear from our residents who've signed up to speak.
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm a dum-dum this morning. Just some clarification. So we're going to vote on whether or not to table this, because there's a second.
It's
Yeah, but we're going to do that after we hear from the residents.
After we hear from the residents.
It's
That's when-
indefinitely. He wants to indefinitely remove it and strike it.
But first, before we vote, we're going to hear from the residents. Is that what I'm understanding? Okay, then I'm not a dum-dum. Just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to call out names, and I will call out, because there's a number of people who've signed up to speak, I'll call out the person who's about to speak and then the person after them, so that that person can maybe proceed down to the front row and be prepared. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Don't feel like you have to take all 3 minutes. There's no need necessarily to say things over and over and over again. And please state your name and address when you begin. And I apologize in advance for mispronunciations of names. That's another good reason to say your name when you begin, so you can speak it properly. All right, Ben Ilaraza will be followed by Audrey Hendricks.
Thank you. My name is Ben Ilaraza. My address is 809 and 1/2 Northwest 33rd Street. I'm speaking in favor of this resolution. It is clear 9 months into this war that there is no military solution to this conflict. Out of 104 Israeli hostages who have been freed, 97 of them were freed through negotiated agreements. Unfortunately, numerous hostages have been killed by Israel's own indiscriminate bombing, or very unfortunately, directly by gunfire from its soldiers. Lancet estimates that 186,000 Palestinians have been killed by Israel in this conflict, amounting to roughly 8% of the population of Gaza. These people are in famine, with barely any or no access to food, water, shelter, or adequate medicine or medical treatment. They are subject to death marches under bombardment as Israel evacuates them from one area to another over and over. The goal of this is not security for Israel, the destruction of Hamas, or to free hostages. It is eradication. The International Criminal Court is processing arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu and other senior Israeli leadership for crimes against humanity. The International Court of Justice ruled on the 19th of this month that Israel's presence in the Palestinian territories is an illegal occupation and that it perpetrates apartheid. We must use our voice as a city to call for an immediate ceasefire, the release of all hostages and Palestinian prisoners, and food and aid into Gaza. Israel has repeatedly moved the goalposts and slow-walked negotiations with Hamas to drag out this war for the political benefit of its leaderships. They can be allowed to do so no longer. Please pass this resolution, and I thank you.
Thank you. Audrey Hendricks, followed by Kenny Shelton. That's going to, I'm going to have to, if that continues, I'm going to have to start taking out of the next speaker's time. So I know you're supportive, and maybe there's a quicker way to do that, but that was about 20 seconds, and that's going to add up. So Audrey Hendricks, followed by Kenny Shelton.
Good morning, Council. My name is Audrey Hendricks. My address is 17900 Marin Drive, and I'm in Ward 8. The Lancet is one of the oldest and most respected medical journals in the world, and they estimate the actual death toll in Palestine is likely around 186,000. More than 40% of Palestine's population is children. That is tens of thousands of dead children. I understand these numbers are difficult to comprehend, but please remember that every single one of these children killed had dreams. They had parents that hoped and prayed for their safety. They had a favorite storybook. They had a dream of what they wanted to be when they grew up, a dream that now will never come true. This proposal is not radical. It is simply a statement that Oklahoma City stands against violence. Oklahomans stand against violence towards children, mothers, fathers, and grandparents, regardless of where they are from. Please vote yes. Let the world know that Oklahoma City stands against violence towards all civilians. Thank you.
Thank you. Kenny Shelton, followed by Janelle Jensen.
Hello, my name is Kenny Shelton. I'm in Ward 1. Good morning. The ongoing violence in Palestine has changed so many lives, even the lives of us here in OKC. You have heard from many of us for months and months. You have had tragedy after tragedy brought to you with hopes that you will hear the pleas of countless people through us. This cannot have been easy. Through these months, we have also learned parts of your lives, the care and devotion you have for your families, the passion you have for education, and the desire for safety for our youth. As the violence and ethnic cleansing continues, so does the risk of violence here in OKC. Islamophobia and anti-Semitism are rampant in this country and must be taken incredibly seriously in our communities here in OKC. Hate has no place in Oklahoma City. Hate has no place in this world, which is why today I'm asking you to stand up against hate and to vote yes to pass this ceasefire resolution. This one action can change the lives of so many. By voting yes to pass this resolution, you are standing in solidarity with your constituents against hate and violence. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Janelle Jensen, followed by Jacqueline Shelton, and thank you for working with me on keeping this moving. I appreciate you all.
My name is Janelle Jensen, and my address is 1401 Northwest 17th Street in Oklahoma City. I urge the council members to vote yes on the ceasefire resolution because thousands of children and civilians are being massacred in Gaza. The healthcare system is decimated, and as you've already heard, it is a humanitarian crisis. Our tax dollars are supporting this massacre. And I'm here at the city council meeting because that's where my voice can be heard. I don't have direct connection to the federal government, and the actions that we take here at the city council can affect federal policies. I realize now that in the past, in Christian circles, I am a Christian, and I realize that there is teachings that are Islamophobic that I didn't understand at the time, where they were saying, you know, we must be careful that the Muslims are going to take over the world. Maybe some of you have heard that. And I realize now that that teaching is Islamophobic. Just to give you a little personal background, I have hosted an Israeli exchange student in my home 10 years ago when my kids were teenagers. And so I do have a little bit of a personal connection to Israel just in that way. I'm not necessarily against Israelis. I'm here to ask you to vote yes on this resolution, to let the rest of the country know that the massacre in Gaza must end. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline Shelton, followed by Vivian Jaber.
Jacqueline Shelton, Ward 5. Hey, y'all. Today you have the opportunity to stand in solidarity with your constituents. You have the opportunity to condemn anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. You have the opportunity to let the world know that OKC has a heart right here in the state known as the Heartland. No matter your beliefs, the only way to stop the violence is to call for a ceasefire in Palestine. A vote against this resolution is a vote directly against the well-being of your many constituents and members of their family. Y'all always say you want to put OKC on the map. Here's your chance. Show the world that compassion exists, even for people who don't look and live like you. And pass this resolution. Our liberation as people is intertwined. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Vivian Jaber, followed by Nadia Rashid.
Hello, my name is Vivian and I live in Ward 1. I'm a Palestinian American and a mother of 2 little girls that I'm raising in Oklahoma City. Many of you know me at this point because I've come many times over the last few months. And I'd like to start off by saying to Ceasefire and Carter that your attempt to silence us today is shameful and disgusting. As a Palestinian, our voice matters. Our lives matter, and we will not be silenced. We are going to continue speaking up, whether you like it or not. When I first started coming here, the number of martyred Palestinians was 30,000. The number has stagnated since then, but not because the bombs have stopped dropping, not because aid has been let into Gaza. It's because those who count the dead have been murdered. We have lost the capability to track how many lives have been lost in Gaza. Make no mistake, this is a genocide. The international community recognizes it as such. The ICC has issued arrest warrants for Netanyahu for his flagrant disregard for international law. The ICJ has already determined that this is a plausible genocide. We are watching the Holocaust of the Palestinian people happen right now. And the only moral and acceptable response to that is to call for a ceasefire and to call for peace. Every one of us has a moral obligation to leverage whatever power we have to call for peace and call for an end to this Holocaust. It's as uncomplicated as that. So as a Palestinian, as an Oklahoman, I urge you to do the right thing, hear us, and pass a ceasefire resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Nadia Rashid, followed by Khaled Shahabi.
Hi, my name is Nadia Rashid. I live at 5609 Northwest 111th Street, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma 73162. You know, initially when the genocide of the Palestinians started, I had this sort of idea that it had to stop because someone would do something about it, right? We couldn't just watch tens, hundreds of thousands of people, including children, be slaughtered, and surely the world wouldn't turn a blind eye. I always asked myself, how is it possible that the Nazis were able to commit such atrocities and kill so many people and nobody stopped them? But I understand now, because I spend all of my time every day trying to advocate against the killing of people, and nobody listens to me. I've come to city council a lot. I feel like begging and screaming at the top of my lungs for anyone to listen that killing people is wrong, and it just seems like nobody is really hearing it. I don't know how to explain this to you. I've seen babies without heads. I've seen heads without babies. Just this past week, I saw a video of a beheaded baby's body being pulled out of a bucket by a healthcare worker and zipped into a body bag. These are the kinds of things that are happening on the ground in Gaza, and if you're not seeing the images that I'm seeing, I don't know how to explain to you how horrific it is, but if you go looking for them, you will find them, and I think that seeing how bad it is something that will make you understand why all of us are so passionate about this ending, right? I know that all of you are not seeing the horrific images and videos that I'm seeing because they're not popping up on your pages the way they're popping up on mine. But I'm asking that you listen to us when we're telling you what we're seeing. When I'm telling you I am seeing beheaded children, I'm seeing toddlers that have been burned to death in fires. I'm seeing mothers sobbing because they come home from getting groceries for their kids and their entire family has been exterminated. These things must end, and signing a ceasefire resolution would be a step in the right direction. My family is from Pakistan. Growing up in Oklahoma, we faced a lot of racism. Some of my earliest memories are my dad being racially profiled by cops and other instances like that when we were out in public because I am very white passing and my dad is very brown. I know that Oklahoma does not stand for this kind of racism and discrimination, and Oklahoma should
30 seconds
value
remaining.
all of its people at the same level, regardless of where they're from or what color their skin is.
Thank you, Khaled Shahabi, followed by Yasmin Abushe.
Hello, my name is Khaled, 1029 Northeast 6th Street in Ward 7. And I'm here, I'm a Palestinian. I lived in Oklahoma pretty much my whole life. And I'm currently a medical student actually at the OU Health Sciences Center, just 10 or so minutes away from here. And I've come this morning just to share about the catastrophic healthcare situation and crisis in Gaza. At this point, every single hospital in the Gaza Strip has been attacked. Most of them have been besieged. Doctors are still performing procedures on the floor with phone flashlights because of electricity cuts and exhausted medical supplies. We're getting reports from the ground describing the catastrophic situation in which patients can't get the treatment that they need. Babies are in incubators, but there's a lack of fuel, so many babies are succumbing to their illness. Infections are going around due to the attack on water and sanitation, and medical supplies are running out due to the complete siege on humanitarian aid. Very recently, polio has been rediscovered in Gaza, and an impending epidemic is on the horizon. Vaccines for a disease that has long been eradicated are now making its way into Gaza because of this siege. Yet Zionist soldiers are getting booster shots in order to go back into Gaza and continue their genocidal onslaught on my people. This campaign of murder has been going on for almost 10 months. Again, I'm a medical student and I engage in health advocacy efforts here in Oklahoma on a variety of different health issues. Now, how can I expect to work with my local city or elected officials on different healthcare issues when they haven't even acknowledged the suffering and oppression of my people, which are the people of Gaza and of Palestine? There are many Palestinians in OKC and in Oklahoma at large, and not to mention those who watch the news with their own eyes and are horrified, yet they do not feel supported or even seen or heard. This is very much an Oklahoma issue, just as it is an American issue, because our tax dollars are funding this genocide. Our local and state governments are investing millions into this genocide. The billions of American dollars sent to the Israeli military are in the form of airstrikes on homes and bombs on children.
30 seconds remaining.
The very least our city council here can do is to reject the killing of innocent men and women and children, to support aid to enter so that the sick and injured can be healed, and to stand in support of our Oklahoma communities who are in pain and who are hurting. We must call for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza from here in Oklahoma City, as has been done in many other cities in the United States: Chicago, San Francisco, Iowa City, Richmond, Dearborn, Atlanta, and many more. Let's be people of conscience and stand on the right side of history. Free Palestine.
Yasmin Abushe, followed by Hannah Russell.
My name is Yasmin, Ward 1. I'm Palestinian American. And this week, I watched a child's head on my phone. That's it. It was just their head laying down right beside her martyred mom. I watched her head be placed into a bag with the rest of her body. Last night, I watched Israeli settlers break into a detention center and demand that 9 Israeli occupation soldiers be released. These 9 soldiers gang raped a Palestinian hostage so bad, they paralyzed him for life. Men, women, and children are being mercilessly slaughtered by military forces funded by the United States. In a recent study published by the Lancet Medical Journal, one of the most trusted peer-reviewed medical sources found the estimated death toll will be around 186,000 in the coming weeks if we continue to allow Israel to bomb Gaza, cut off aid, and ruin their water sources. The United States has continuously abused its power as a United Nations member and stood in the way of humanitarian calls for peace in the recognition of the state of Palestine. Our federal government has callously demonstrated that they do not represent humanity. We demand that our city, the city of Oklahoma City, take a stand and call for a ceasefire in Gaza and join other cities across the globe standing for humanity. For those who aren't familiar with the ceasefire resolution, it condemns anti-Semitism, anti-Palestinian and Islamophobic rhetoric, and attacks across the nation and here at home. So really, all it is stating that OKC supports international law. Not quite sure why so many of you continue to oppose that. I'm also not so sure why so many of you continue to do everything in your power to oppose the Palestinian existence. Mayor Holt, you made several calls after Pride Alliance supported a free Palestine, which resulted in the loss of many sponsors. Bradley Carter, you called 15,000 dead children terrorists. For the past 9 months, I've been organizing and mobilizing my community so when elections roll around, we're ready. Bradley Carter, Barbara Peck, and Todd Stone have elections in 2025. Mayor Holt has an election in 2026. We will act accordingly and replace you with people who represent us in a line with humanity. Thank you.
Hannah Russell, followed by Dana Albani.
Hi, my name is Hannah Russell. I live in, my pronouns are she, her. I live in Ward 6, and I am a trans woman living in Oklahoma as well as a bus operator. On my routes every day, I see a lot of poverty, a lot of people who are suffering, and I just want to highlight how much money we spend in the military-industrial complex, money that should be going to these people instead. I believe that calling for a ceasefire is standing for the sanctity of life itself against, and so that we can end the slaughter of innocent people. I also believe that this stands for the sanctity of life in here, in our own country too, so that we can no longer see the slaughter of people like Next Benedict or Sonia Massey. Free Palestine.
Dana Albani, followed by Ramona Diaz.
Morning, everybody. My name is Dana Albani. I'm in Ward 6. I'm here to speak as a Palestinian resident of Oklahoma and a registered voter to express to all my elected officials that it's imperative that we, as a city, call for a ceasefire in Gaza. For the past 10 months, I've bear witness my people being murdered indiscriminately in the most horrific ways, and all fully supported with our tax dollars. These are innocent civilians, the majority of them being children, that are constantly displaced and under constant bombardment with nowhere safe to go. I'm here to let you all know that Oklahomans strongly condemn the ongoing occupation and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. We demand peace, justice, and an end to this. We're tired of our tax dollars being used to commit genocide, and we're tired of not feeling heard. For the last 10 months, we have demonstrated peaceful protests and have tried to get the city to call for a ceasefire. The fact of the matter is, Oklahoma sends approximately $25 million to Israel annually, and even more since October of last year. We cannot continue to fund this sort of terrorism, and we need to utilize those misused tax dollars for our actual state. As you all well may know, our state is ranked one of the lowest when it comes to education. We have plenty of issues that need to be addressed here, so why are we using millions of dollars to fund a foreign occupation? We need to put an end to Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and xenophobia, and our community is demanding a change. I thank you guys all for your time, and I hope you all heavily consider the dire need for a ceasefire. And please imagine if all those children in Gaza were your children, your grandchildren, your family. Us Palestinians have a right to live and grow old just like you do and I do in America. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Ramona Diaz, followed by Finn Human.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ramona Diaz. I spoke here a couple weeks ago, Ward 7. I just want to say real quick, I appreciate those of you looking up and listening. Mr. Mayor, I'd really ask that you put aside whatever you're working on right now and take time to listen to your constituents who are very bravely coming here to speak in front of y'all. This is intimidating for folks who don't usually get out and do things like this. So please, I ask that you put aside what you're working on and listen. Thank you, those of you who are looking up. I'll try and briefly get through this here, but we've seen relentless violence and death directed at the Palestinian people of Gaza and the West Bank over the last 11 months. As Oklahomans, we contribute to this violence directly through the production and export of weapons and through our state and federal tax dollars, as has been made clear by my comrades. We give them resources to perpetuate their genocide, fund their health care. We fund their entire state. In light of the events this summer, in which the queer people of Oklahoma City participated in the first annual Dyke March to call out the pride organizations for their funding by Israel and ask them to disclose investors, I ask you all to uphold the will of your constituents and follow in line with the demands for justice for Palestinian people at home and abroad. Maybe we can't end the occupation, maybe we can't stop the violence, but what we can do as Oklahoma City is take a firm stand against US-funded genocide abroad and take a firm stand against anti-Palestinian, anti-Semitic, Islamophobic, and xenophobic rhetoric. The Oklahoma City Council has a responsibility to uphold their constituents' values. Everyone I know in my community here in Oklahoma City wants a ceasefire and an end to the bloodshed. Oklahoma City is my home, and I believe that Oklahoma City should reaffirm our values as a community who values human life, human diversity, and ultimately respect for one another. I urge you to please vote yes on the ceasefire resolution, item 4C. Mr. Stonecipher, I do not believe we should indefinitely postpone it. It's audacious. As the great Jewish socialist Albert Einstein said, if I were to remain silent, I'd be guilty of complicity. So I hope you know what remaining silent means. Complicity. Thank you.
Finn Human, followed by Tasneem Al-Michael.
Hi, my name is Finn. I live at 1029 Northeast 6th Street, Ward 7. I wanted to come up here today to speak about the ceasefire resolution. I've lived here in Oklahoma City for 13 years, and I've been voting for 8 of those years. Oklahoma City deserves the best city it can be. If I'm not mistaken, that is the goal of you guys being here, right? You hopefully were elected by the people, for the people of Oklahoma City to make the city better. I want to be proud of where I've been living, and I want to participate in the growth of this city if I can. It's a good city, but there are things that make me ashamed to be here. One of those is the blind eye that has been turned on the death and murder of innocent civilians and kids that we're funding. We could use so much of that money that we send to Israel for our own benefit. Even if you don't believe that Israel is committing a genocide, even if you believe that Palestinians are people waiting to become terrorists and waiting to attack Israel, and that Israel is in jeopardy of being under attack from Hamas if they don't strike them down, how do we as a city benefit from funding them? An average of $25 million each year could be poured back into Oklahoma's development, which we greatly need. Our tax dollars are funding something that we don't condone, and we can't do anything about it except stand here and tell you we want a ceasefire. Just 2 weeks ago, the International Court of Justice had a hearing ruling that Israel's continued presence in the occupied Palestine territory is illegal and that it must be ended, quote, as soon as possible. The ICJ says that all countries around the world are obligated to refuse to recognize unlawful Israeli charges to the territory, including the annexation of East Jerusalem as part of Israel's capital. ICJ says that all countries are obligated to not render aid or assistance to maintaining Israel's presence in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and Gaza. ICJ says all states are obligated to ensure Israel's compliance with international humanitarian law. If legality is no longer something that is a concern of you people, I have no respect for you, and as we as Oklahomans won't stop pestering you for your inability to uphold legal standards. There's no reason that us Oklahomans should even think of giving you that respect. If you don't have a heart for Palestinians, maybe you have a brain to think logically that supporting Israel and
30
their acts
seconds
of
remaining.
violence towards Palestinians is illogical, illegal, and needs to stop now. I urge you to vote yes on a ceasefire resolution today. Do what makes logical sense for Oklahomans if you want respect, support, and votes. Thank you.
Thank you. Tasneem Al-Michael, followed by Mary Ellen Bush.
Good morning, members of City Council. My name is Taz Al-Michael. I reside in Ward 8, zip code 73142, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. I've lived in this city for 24 years, and I'm here to urge our city to support a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. While the conflict may seem distant, its consequences ripple through our community right here in Oklahoma City, affecting us in ways that we may not immediately realize. Yes, it's true there are countless conflicts throughout the world, including the war in Sudan, the student protests in my homeland of Bangladesh, but today I'm here as an advocate for my community members of Palestine. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza is dire. The Gaza Strip is one of the most densely populated areas in the world, with a population of over 2 million people living in just 140 square miles. To put this into perspective, that's roughly the size of Norman, Oklahoma, but with a population density that's 10 times greater. Imagine the entire population of Oklahoma City crowded into an area smaller than our own city limits. The living conditions are harsh, with limited access to clean water, electricity, and medical care. Thousands of people are dead, dying, or being buried alive, and many more are injured or displaced. Additionally, there are tens of thousands of Palestinians, including families and children, desperately seeking to flee the region to find safety and stability. Their plight is a humanitarian crisis that demands our action and attention. For Oklahoma City, taking a stance on this issue is more than international politics. It's about humanity and compassion. Our city has a diverse population, including many who have personal connections to Palestine. These individuals bring their stories and experiences to our community, enriching our cultural tapestry. But by supporting a ceasefire, we can show solidarity with these residents, acknowledging their pain, and standing with them in pursuit of peace. Additionally, the ongoing conflict and narrative surrounding this contributes to the rise of Islamophobia and anti-Semitism here in the United States. We've been seeing an alarming increase in hate crimes, discriminatory rhetoric, targeting both Muslims and Jewish communities throughout the United States. These incidents create fear and
30
division.
seconds, please.
But we can take a step towards combating these harmful trends. It's about understanding that we live in an inclusive and understanding community, because international politics is local politics, and local politics have international effects. In conclusion, supporting a permanent ceasefire in Palestine aligns with our Oklahoman values of peace, justice, and community. It's an expression of empathy and commitment to a better world, both here and abroad. I urge the council to support this cause, not only for those directly affected by the conflict, but for the principles of humanity and compassion that we hold dear. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mary Ellen Bush, followed by Amber Williams.
Hello, my name is Mary Ellen. I am living in Ward 6 right now. I moved to the city from the country. I'm a country girl, and I am now a city girl. So I am here to advocate for the place that I now live and that I now love. And please excuse me, if you were close to me right now, you could hear my heartbeat. I don't usually do these sorts of things, but this cause moves me so well, because I know what it's like to lose family members to senseless violence, and I don't want that for other people, as I'm sure you all do as well. So I'm here to advocate for the ceasefire resolution, to show that Oklahoma City is against the genocide and the ethnic cleansing of Palestine and its people. I feel that it's the least that we could do to help ensure the end of senseless violence that is in large part manufactured in Oklahoma here in the McAllister munitions manufacturing plant. I used to live over there. It's, you know, I don't want our exports of Oklahoma to be violence. I want it to be peace and prosperity, and yeah. So please vote for the ceasefire resolution, and thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you. Amber Williams, followed by Phoenix Bensad.
Hi, my name's Amber Williams. I do think it's interesting that we want to have a ceasefire discussion of a colonial invasion of Palestine when this building is actually built on top of the dead bodies due to colonial efforts. As a mother of 2 children, I don't feel like I should go to bed at night crying, because I have the privilege of knowing that when my children wake up in the morning, I will still be there and they will still be there. Every day I see headless children, children burned alive, children torn apart by dogs on social media because the IDF posts it happily and brags about the things that they do. An IDF soldier bragged about the raping of a 9-year-old little girl, and all I can think to myself is, what if that was my child? Parents don't deserve to go through that. People don't deserve to go through that. And the rhetoric that we continue to use to describe Palestinians as terrorists, they're all evil. And the whole discussion started with us accusing them of being terrorists because of October 7th. Rhetoric that goes all the way back to 9/11, that does incite Islamophobia. It's disgusting and perturbing our actions as a country that we continue to fund Israel and are complicit in this genocide. And if you have children and you tuck them into bed tonight, or you talk to your grandchildren, you still know that when you wake up in the morning, they're gonna be alive. You're not worried about whether or not a bomb is gonna hit your house, whether or not you have to turn the sounds of bombs into games like they do just to help alleviate the fear. Everything that you have right now is a privilege as you continue to enable this happening. When our generation, my generation, writes the history books, the decisions that you make today will go down. So when you are laying on your deathbed and you're thinking about your legacy, do you really want your legacy to be tied up in a genocide? Because that's what I'm teaching my children right now, that America is not the great nation that we portray it to be, that we are funding this. And my people, my generation, will write those history books. Vote yes.
Thank you. Phoenix Bensad, followed by Stevie Rajwar.
Good morning, y'all. My name is Phoenix Bensad. I live in 15101 Grand Park Drive in Oklahoma County. I appreciate everyone that's paying attention right now and looking up. I don't have anything written down. I just wanted to speak to you guys. I am a veteran. I finished my contract honorary. I just finished my contract. I didn't want to stay in. And I am also Arab American, Moroccan American. I'm very upset to see that this has to be brought all the way to a government attention. The fact that we're always so willing to perpetrate violence. I'm very upset as a veteran, as an ex-soldier, soldier medic, I was in the medical field, that we have to watch videos of children, of mothers, of fathers, brothers, sisters, people that are in our shoes every day, being beaten, senseless, being burned alive, being beheaded, being shot, dragged through their own country, their own land. And I just have to ask, please, that you would pay attention and look at me, as well as I have to ask, why are we even here standing having a conversation about this? Why is it not more common, more human for us to decide not to perpetrate fear and hate and violence and death? So much of it, 300,000 citizens of Palestine killed. And that's not just numbers. I feel like these are often just seen as numbers. They're not seen as real human beings, real people that have personalities and feelings. And I wish that it was more seen as human lives, as something that's more precious and sacred, something that we're all experiencing right now, something that we're going to continue to experience after this, maybe enjoy food with our families, go to our houses that have AC, air conditioning, go take a bath, a shower, something that we take for granted every single day. that is being taken away from these people, ripped away, actually being stolen from them. They don't have the choice to come home to their mothers and fathers and children and love themselves and love each other. They have to go into their tents. Some of them don't even have tents, out into the open, watching IDF every single night. We like to go out and watch the stars, go to the lakes, and enjoy time with our families, and their family time is worrying about when's the next time they're gonna eat, when's the next time they're gonna drink, when are they gonna die tomorrow, are they gonna die right now? They're being marched along. It's very reminiscent of Holocaust death parades, where they're just being marched from city to city, safe zone. And it's not even
30
a safe
seconds
zone.
remaining.
Thank you. They're being bombed in their own safe zones. It's almost as if they're dangling life in their face and laughing at them. It's very disrespectful to humanity. It's very disrespectful for the fact that we have to sit here and ask you to call for a ceasefire, when I really think that this should be common, and that we were really seeing human life as numbers in a game and not as genuine human life. I appreciate you for your time.
Thank you. Final speaker is Stevie Rajwar.
Hello, I'm Stevie Rajwar. I am in zip code 73162. And this is my first time speaking before you today because I am a recent college graduate, and I can't help but think of the students in Palestine, the students in Gaza who were denied their graduation, who were denied going to class, experiencing daily life, learning new things, and seeing their own teachers, their own classmates bombed, seeing their universities leveled to the ground. I can't understand how we are paying for this and still one of the lowest in education in the United States. I don't understand how we are paying for violence and then purporting to be a safe space for Jewish people here. As a Jewish American specifically, I want to say that I've heard my community thrown around as reasoning for warmongering, racism, Islamophobia, and violence against my Palestinian siblings around the world. Our tax dollars are not going to protect Palestinian Jews, to build community here or there, to teach against anti-Semitism, or to improve our education so our children know their international history, know the history of atrocities that have come before, and can prevent them. I want to say that Israel does not stand for me, the IDF does not defend me, and I have experienced more safety, care, and humanity at protests for Palestinian rights and lives than I have ever experienced in this room in my local government. So don't throw my name around. Don't throw the safety of your Jewish constituents or your Jewish community that you don't personally know as an excuse to support a war machine, an ethno-state, and violence against children, against innocent civilians. Please pass this ceasefire resolution. I beg you. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our speakers who have signed up to speak. Now we're on debate on the Councilman Stonecipher's motion, which has been seconded to postpone the item indefinitely. Is there any council members who wish to speak on the motion?
I'll make my comments very brief because I've already expressed how I feel. I want to thank everyone that came to be here to speak your truth, and I want you to know that we see you and we hear you. I also want to extend my gratitude to our Rabbi Harris, Mr. Michael, and all of our friends who are here because we condemn the things that are happening across the world. And I think it's important for all of us to really, truly acknowledge, again, the things that are happening in Gaza, and as well as Palestine, as well as in Israel, as well as those sister cities I mentioned, and the places we have yet to hear or read about that are experiencing extreme conflict that will never be televised. So the ending of occupation everywhere is the ultimate goal
of what we ask for. And I want to continuously lift up our young people for speaking and showing what democracy can look like for them to show up. And yes, we do have elections, and I hope you will understand who represents you, who shares your values, and who you will need, if not someone else, make sure you are the person running. So I want to encourage everyone here to continue to speak through how we can align and still work together, because we're going to have to continue to support each other through these times of what we are experiencing. And my heart hurts because this is a human rights issue that's happening right now. And we talk about how we've reestablished our Human Rights Commission, and these are things in which we should be speaking through our Human Rights Commission of how we care for each other. So those are my comments, and I think it's very unfortunate that we are using a way to just eliminate instead of just voicing a vote to say yes or no.
Okay, any other comments from the council on the motion?
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, please, Councilman.
Oh, you mind if I go ahead, or you want to go first?
No, please, sir.
I just want to say, to echo some of Councilwoman Nice's comments. I mean, y'all came up here and took time out of your day, and that's good. That's good. Make sure your voice is heard. But I can tell you my standpoint since I've been elected, one thing I've always stood for here on council is that we're here to take care of city business. And whether that's potholes, whether it's trying to fix issues for our homelessness, whether it's trying to fix other issues for our residents, that's where I try to maintain my focus. And I can tell you, it's a lot. It's a lot. And I just, whether you're for or against the resolution, doesn't matter. To me, we're talking about an international issue. And I can tell you, like knocking doors sometimes, people wanted to talk about international issues with me for an hour. And I'm really trying to focus on our city. That's what I was elected for, so.
We will have to clear the chamber if we continue to have the disruptions. You had a chance to speak. Everybody signed a form. We will recess and clear the chamber if we hear more disruptions. Councilman Stone, you have the floor.
Thank you. So I want to say, for me, it's about focusing on city business. Right now, I mean, we've got tons of staff back here that is here to try and help us solve those issues, answer any questions we have. In my opinion, we don't need to be focusing on international issues. If we want to focus on international issues, let's go talk to the federal government. Hey, let's go talk to the city government. State government. I'm sorry, Councilwoman Nice. So anyway, that's just my stand on it. Thank you.
Okay. So I will try to be brief. It is not something necessarily in my wheelhouse, as many of you understand about me. But I will also say many of you do not know me. And I'd like to speak directly to Ward 2, if I might. No offense to everybody else, but I'd like to speak directly to Ward 2. I see residents from Ward 2 who are here right now: Nick, Son, Ryan, Rabbi, Adam, Taz. So I heard the young speaker earlier say your heart was beating a mile a minute. Solidarity, same. I'm quite nervous to speak right now, but I will. So the backstory with me, I'm the first teacher to serve on city council, as many of you know, but I'm also a student of nonviolence. As a student of nonviolence, that philosophy is truly at my core. It animates me out of bed in the morning. I can't be any clearer than that. It guides everything else I do. In fact, as a former middle school teacher, I taught AVID, which is a college preparation program, and we focus on strengthening students' writing skills, their reading skills, their collaboration skills, organization, and critical thinking. And it's the critical thinking where I'd like to kind of hang out for a bit with you all for the next couple minutes. In doing so, we focus on the Socratic method. So I have to teach the history of Socrates to my students. And as many of you might recall, Socrates, the gadfly, right, would walk around the town and he would ask people, why do you believe what you believe? And they would answer, and then he'd follow up with why, like the toddler, right? And this would annoy people. His country went to war, and he questioned it, and when they lost the war, they blamed him. They also said, you might recall, that he was teaching his student, he had corrupted the youth, and that he had gone against the official religion of Greece, and thus he must be put to death. As they were going to kill him, his students begged him, please don't drink the hemlock. And he said, I have to because the unexamined life is not worth living. This act of political protest and nonviolence is one of our earliest known acts of nonviolence. This idea of the protest through my conscience. I have to stand up for this belief. And he knew his students would never again trust him if he took back what he had taught them. He had to die, he said. Whew. Now, I teach that to my students, but I also teach them that within the context of Martin Luther King's letter from Birmingham jail. This is a very famous letter that any English teacher worth their salt often finds themselves teaching in the classroom, to teach rhetoric, to teach how one uses statistics and data to make an argument, how one makes appeals to ethos, the credibility of a speaker, to make an argument, how one uses not just data and facts and credibility, but also makes appeals, it's ethos, pathos, emotional appeals to the heart. In that same letter, Martin Luther King Jr. reminds us of what Socrates did. I wasn't just rambling, I wanted to take you there. He also makes, as you remember in that letter, an appeal he mentions Paul from the Bible, and how Paul spread the gospel no matter where he went, right? He also reminds us that when you act in nonviolence, that's not just something I throw around, and it was not something that MLK threw around. There were specific steps one takes in the act of nonviolence. One is the collection of data and facts about the situation at hand. Number two is negotiation with people who might actually hate you and your very existence. It also required sometimes direct action, like the nonviolent sit-ins we saw at the Montgomery bus boycott, like Clara Looper conducted here in OKC. The one my students always struggled with in 7th and 8th grade was this one, a personal commitment to nonviolence, that when someone strikes you, you turn the other cheek. It was almost as if no one had taught them the teachings of Jesus. This was a struggle for them. I teach this history, and because I am a student of nonviolence, I struggle every day, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's Gaza, when I hear conversations about war. I'm also very well versed in Catholic theology around just war. I take this very seriously. Like I said, it is animating me out of bed in the morning. This is not playtime for me. So when this resolution came, when I saw over the last week that it was coming, my mind found itself preoccupied with what to do about it. I have spoke with our rabbi who reached out to me. I appreciate that phone call on Sunday. If you were to Google Reuters right now and look at a headline from April 22nd, there would be a headline you would find that says, Israeli hostage families make Passover plea for return of missing loved ones. We have missing Americans who are hostages, Israelis. We have thousands of dead Palestinians. And in this article, the families of Israeli hostages, and I'll just quote for them. It is Israel's Hostage and Missing Family Forum, the organization representing most, not all, most of the families of the hostages, where they urge to place an empty chair at the, I might mispronounce this, I'm so sorry, is it Cedar or? Seder, thank you so much. I might know a lot, but I do not know everything. The Seder table, they wanted to leave a place at their Seder table with a portrait of a hostage. One of those family members, Goldberg Poulin, said she hoped for a ceasefire in Gaza, for the hostages to return, and an end to the quagmire of misery and trauma. Something that we all need, something that we need all of our leaders to be doing, all of them, is to make the decision to care about and love their own people more than they hate their enemies. I'll conclude by reminding everybody, as my students and I discuss, every single semester, we do not miss a beat. Every single semester, we talk about how once upon a time, present-day Spain, the Iberian Peninsula, from the time of the creation of the Christian Bible to the arrival of the Prophet Muhammad, to the Italian Renaissance, Martin Luther's Protestant Reformation, we talk about how on the Iberian Peninsula, once upon a time, Jewish people, Muslim people, Christians, didn't just live side by side as neighbors, they intermarried. Collaboration, which was one of the main things I taught my students because I was tasked to by AVID, is possible. Our own history, our world history teaches us that. We talk a lot about this distinction between the global and the local. I would remind everybody that while I'm the first teacher on council, the first Jewish council member is from Ward 2, Mark Schwartz. On the day of the OKC bombing, the very first thing Mark Schwartz did, the very first thing he did, was make the First Christian Church, which once stood at 36th and Walker, a makeshift sanctuary. A makeshift sanctuary to reconnect people, regardless of their ethnic background, their religious background, and the color of their skin, their sexuality, their gender identity, to connect them back to one another and to connect them to mutual aid. Because that's who Ward 2 is. Ward 2 is for everybody. We have a mosque, we have a synagogue. I went to both immediately after October 7th. I stand with these families who want to end this quagmire of misery and trauma. They are calling for a ceasefire as well. When this resolution came to this council and I learned about it, I knew as a student of nonviolence, I too must stand with it. And I know that might make very painful for some of the people who are in attendance here. I understand that. I am happy to return to synagogues, to mosques, and to work through this pain with anybody, because this trauma hurts. It hurts. And I know it's with us every single day that we see some of the images that you all have described. So, while I know that my vote in favor of a ceasefire resolution might upset some of you, I hope now you understand where I'm coming from. I see some nodding heads yes, some no. Happy to sit down and listen to you at length. I hope you will hear me at length as well. But the most important thing is getting these hostages home and condemning, not just condemning, but the dramatic rise of anti-Semitic attacks. 380-something% increase just in October alone. The attacks on children here in our own country stabbed to death who are Palestinian. I can't stand for that because I stand for a word for everybody. So we can talk, and I know that was a little bit lengthier, but I just needed you to understand my perspective, so thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further debate from the council on the motion to postpone the resolution indefinitely? Seeing none, why don't we bring up the motion?
Mayor, I want to
Oh, sure, sorry.
Sorry. As much as I appreciate everybody who has spoken, and we understand the courage it takes to stand up regardless of what side you're on, the fact that the amount of people would call someone a name because we have a differing opinion, who has been called names and stands up there rejecting that aspect of it, seems a little hypocritical. I listened to everyone get up here and speak about the atrocities against Palestine, but not one person said a word about the attack on October 7th that began this. Not one person recognized the fact that there was already a ceasefire in place that got violated at that point in time. Not one person rejected the brutal rule that Hamas has inside of Gaza. No one recognized the effects of the ceasefire conversations that have happened, that have been completely walked away from, that have been rejected numerous times by Hamas. One, in fact, Hamas rejected the ceasefire agreement because it was going to require them to release 40 living hostages. Of those were female, children, and elderly. In July, Hamas agreed to a ceasefire, but only as long as they could continue to fire rockets. Oh, this is all online. You can look it up.
Councilman Carter has the floor. You all had a chance to speak.
That is at Britannica.com, if you'd like to read that. So it concerns me that the title of this resolution is said in such a way that it appears that we actually care about all that are involved. But as you read through it, it becomes very clear that we don't. I believe you have an agenda that is to come against the Jewish people. And at no point in this resolution do you actually condemn any of the attacks that happened on into Israel. At no point did you ask to end the reign of Hamas in Gaza or the region that has oppressed Palestine for many years. At no point did you demand the release of the hostages, which some of them are still U.S. hostages, or the returning of the bodies of the civilians and the military hostages of Hamas that are holding for leverage of continued power. In my opinion, it is very clear that you are trying to do here, and I absolutely stand against what this one stands for. Although I do not condone the killing of innocent people by any means, I do not like war. I do stand up for someone who has the right to defend themselves. And so for that, I will not be signing this resolution.
Before we continue and vote, I just want to say first in my comments from the Vice President, it was, and I quote, all hostages are released. I also want to make mention, yes, we understand Hamas as far as what this says from our Vice President. And I want to remark her because I want to also acknowledge what is going on, that they triggered a war and included 44 Americans. Hamas has committed horrific acts of sexual violence and 250 hostages. So we understand there's conflict on both sides. And to the opinion that my stance and ask in support of this resolution was to ensure not only are we talking about those things that are happening in these two countries, again, that are magnified on television, but those things that are not. And I also want to uplift those names right now that are captive. Sagu Dekel Chin, Harish Goldberg Poland, Eden Alexander, Keith Siegel, Omer Nirtra, and the remains of some of our citizens as well, Judy Weinstein, Gad Haggai, and Eddie Chin. So those are Americans. Those belong to cities across, those people belong to cities across our nation. that we also lift up as we say this is not a local issue, but these people belong to different cities that are a part of what we call the United States of America. So I think it's very harsh to say some of us believe in one and not the other, because I personally believe that there can be, I agree with the Vice President, of a two-state solution. Now, how that happens is the difficult part of how we continue these conversations. But I will say that as far as our president is concerned and our vice president, they have asked for a ceasefire. I do understand there are difficulties on both sides, and me and Councilwoman Hammond have been talking through this, how to ensure we support, how to reach out to understand what the conflicts are, and also understanding this is not something that just happened. This is generational and centuries old conflict that still has to be defined, that has not fully been realized because textbooks don't want to tell it all. And that's an unfortunate part of how history continues to repeat itself, because people omit the things that need to be mentioned. So I do personally say that I condemn the anti-Semitic, anti-Palestinian, Islamophobic, and xenophobic rhetoric that has rose across our nation, that has rose across our cities. And to the people, while we say, again, this is not local, the people that showed up, that are a part of these countries that are represented, live in our wards. We represent the people, and this resolution, I hope, will help us continue conversations on the ground about how we come together to talk through what is happening across the globe. And again, think about the things in the people, not just from those countries that have been discussed, again, the countries that have not. So those are, my mind is on the conflict that happens, again, that we've seen since October, but also the conflict that has happened in other countries that we don't see, that don't get the same televised experience that we have been able to see forefront in the news, written on media outlets, and understanding from journalists who may not have the larger voices to understand what's going on all over the world. And again, this human rights issue is what is happening. It's a human rights issue for all that are involved, not just one.
Okay, why don't we bring up that motion now electronically? We have a motion and a second to, what's the phrase, Councilman Ceasefire, for the motion?
Move to postpone this motion indefinitely.
Got it.
Part of Chapter 6, Section 11 of the 12th edition of Robert's Rules of Order.
Okay, so it's a motion from Councilman Ceasefire and a second from Councilman Carter. Cast your votes. Okay. All right, we'll do a roll call.
Ward 1? Yes. Ward 2?
Nay.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4? Yay. Ward 5? Ward 6? Ward 7? Ward 8? Yes, please. 5-3.
Aye.
Oh, sorry.
Passes, motion passes 6-3. Item is postponed indefinitely. We'll now recess the council meeting and convene as the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority. We have items A through I we could take with one motion. Executive session is not requested by staff on item H2.
I would like to request that we move it to enter into executive session, please.
Okay, we've
that
got a
item.
motion to go into executive session, so that would be item H2 under the OCMFA agenda. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Do we need to do refreshes on the computers? Or? Okay. So it's just you who's frozen, or is everybody frozen? Are you guys able to vote electronically? Okay, so you're in no. How are you on this motion? You're in no. Okay. All right, motion fails 3-5.
I'd like to vote separately on item H, please.
Okay. Well, why don't we take that up right now then? Let's take a motion on item H1. A motion and a second. Cast your votes. Is anyone not able to vote? You're good? Is she? Do you have 3? Barbara, do you have? You're good? Passes 6-2. All right, now we're on the remainder of the OCMFA docket, save item H. We can take a motion on all those items together. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Now we'll adjourn OCMFA and convene as the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority. We have items A through F we could take with one motion.
I'd like to vote separately on item A, please.
Okay. So let's take up that item first, item A on the PPA docket. A motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes 6-2, and now we're on the remainder of the PPA docket, items B through F. We've got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. We'll adjourn OCPPA, and now we are back convened as the City Council. I don't want to forget, well, let's get a full complement, so we'll wait longer for perhaps Councilman Cooper to return. All right, let's continue then with the consent docket, item 9. We have no scheduled presentations. Item BF was struck. Is there anything that a council member wishes to pull out for separate comment, vote, question?
Did you say item BF, as in Frank, was struck?
Correct.
Thank you. Mine is, I have just a combination, C and item C and AU, and they can be taken together. And item W.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to hear a little bit more about what I would consider an exciting project. This is item V, as in Victor, please. And I think I've already mentioned this to staff, but AU, just to kind of hear an update on that item,
Did you
please.
say AU?
I did, sir.
Okay, we've got 2 requests for that. Okay.
Okay, sorry, forgive me, I'd stepped out. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Then we'll take them in order, which means we'll start.
I'm sorry, Mayor. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I just got reminded by staff. I think I said also item X we'd like to hear a little bit about. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, so we'll start with item C. Councilwoman Nice, and you're going to kind of group together AU with that.
Yes, I can do that, and if I need to go back to it, I'll just wait since he's asking for a separate conversation about it. But I will, as far as our professional public relations and engagement services, just curious to know if this is the only agreement that we will be bringing forward as far as working with our public relations and engagement for our city. And I ask that also in relation to item AU to ensure that we are being equitable with our contracting for how we work through all communities in contracting with those that can represent all other specific communities as well, instead of being a subcontractor.
So we did go through an RFP process, and this is our primary contractor I know that we're using for the outreach.
Yes, my name is Christy Yeager. I'm the Public Information Officer for the City of Oklahoma City. We have entered into an agreement with Gooden Group, and Gooden Group has pulled together a group of other PR experts from all over Oklahoma City that represent a diverse community for us, because that was extremely important, probably the most important thing when we were looking at selecting a PR firm. And we're working with Tango PR and Crystal Yosef, along with the Gooden Group, who has a fairly diverse organization as well.
Okay. I guess my question still remains. I see the professional services agreement with the Gooden Group. Will we be bringing forward professional services agreements with Tango, with Conjo Concepts? Will we see those in later agendas?
They're grouped in this agreement, so I don't have any others planned right now.
Okay. And I no disrespect to what our process has been. I think that's also where it's my difficulty is, again, we say the things that we do, however, it's not experienced in how we provide those professional services agreement. And that is specific towards other vendors, smaller vendors, those being able to be a part of our contracting process and or agreement process, which speaks to when I have conversations with people asking me how can they do business with the city, and these things aren't realized on our agendas as far as those agreements are concerned. So I just wanted to uplift that comment because it seems as if we're still continuing to do that type of business as usual. And then again, it's not to say we're not working with diverse groups, but if we were truly being equitable, we would see those professional services agreements with some of our other groups that have the ability and capability to be a part of our professional services agreement and or contracting process. So that was my same question for item AU, because I know as we work towards how we look at public relations support to the public safety partnership, that is also going to be very vital in how we are able to talk through and connect with our community members about what specifically and how specifically we can connect. And the issue again is how we continue to extract information from our communities, but we don't empower our communities by allowing them to see the realization of contracting and being a part of our city's contracting process. So I just wanted to mention and make that.
Okay. Next up is item V. Councilman Cooper, and also Toon Nguyen has signed up to speak on this item.
Well, lucky us. Wouldn't we bring him up to the podium? Come on up. And whoever else would want to speak on this, because I think this was a bit of what they call a collaborative effort.
It is indeed. Good morning, Mayor and Council, and Mr. City Manager. I'm Randy Marks, Arts Liaison. Many of us remember the sad and tragic images of the fall of Saigon 50-plus years ago, and then the hundreds of thousands of boat people from Vietnam fleeing for freedom. And we also remember how many hundreds of those boat people ended up in Oklahoma City to rebuild their lives, to start their lives over again, and how they became an indispensable part of Oklahoma City, what Oklahoma City is today, bringing the rich cultural tradition with them. Commemorating this, the Asian District Cultural Association wants to commemorate or mark the 50th anniversary of that that massive boat exodus with a sculpture titled "We Are Here" to be installed in Military Park. With your approval today, there would be a long-term loan agreement with the Asian District Cultural Association to provide this sculpture that is designed by Gabe Friedman and Denise Duong, that will be situated, go ahead and slide please, that will be sited in Military Park towards the north, kind of in the middle of the park next to the pyramid-shaped hill. It'll join a sculpture that is already there titled Brothers in Arms. Would you go back one slide, Mark? There, you see the map of Military Park, and the star marks the spot. Actually, the star, unfortunately, the star over on the left side is out of place. But on the right side, if you've been in Military Park, you know there's a pyramidal hill, and it'll be adjacent to that hill. At the south end of the park, the existing sculpture of Brothers in Arms commemorates the cooperation between the Vietnamese people and the United States in the war in Vietnam. The association approached us talking about wanting to do this loan, us meaning the Arts Department. Arts and Cultural Affairs collaborated with Melinda McMillan Miller in Parks to work out the details of the loan. And if you'll go to the next slide, we'll see a picture of the sculpture. The sculpture is modeled after traditional fishing boats in Vietnam. And you can see in the top image, the plan view. Over to the right-hand side, there is a seating area that is meant to facilitate conversations that will be recorded and will become part of a permanent oral history archive. I'll be happy to answer questions for you, but also we have Toon Nguyen, who I believe has asked to speak, and he'll be able to go into much more detail, but if you'd like any information about the actual agreement, I'll be happy to answer any of those.
Thanks, Randy.
Thank you.
Hi, Mayor, council members. It's a pleasure coming back here. It's been a while, a bit of a minute. But this project is very meaningful for our community, not only in the Asian District Cultural Association, for the Asian District, but for our city itself. It is a commensurative piece for our city and commensurating our 50th year anniversary in 2025. We hope to have a grand opening ribbon cutting in April or May of 2025 for the completion of phase 1 of this project. The second phase of this project, we are wanting to actually bring people to this destination, record oral histories, have a QR code for people to actually look up and understand the history and the stories of our community, the Vietnamese refugee community. We actually have applied for a Route 66 grant and some other grant funding mechanisms for this. I'm pleased to report that we have raised about more than half of the funds right now, and we're actively raising funds for this. We are going to kick off our fundraiser with a documentary that I invite each and every one of you guys, if you have some time, on August the 9th, 10th, and 11th, to view this documentary and understand better the journey of the Vietnamese refugee immigrants here. Upon that, I think this project not only does this, but it actually is a placemaking piece for our city. It will bring a lot more people to this destination to actually visit the Asian district. So thank you so much for your consideration, your time today.
I just have, do you all know where in the park you all plan to have it placed, or are you still working those details out?
Yes, on that, yes, that destination right there. The Brothers in Arms statue is on the south corner of Military Park. And so you take the sidewalk right on down where the hill is right now. It's just sitting a hill, so that I think that's the best destination for this sculpture.
Yeah, that's. I realized you showed that before. I was really just looking at like the map of Military Park. I love the interactive nature of it. I think that's such a neat way to sort of bring in, like you said, the placemaking aspect. It's really neat to see this kind of effort, and hopefully it can be an example to other cultural groups, neighborhood associations, for how we can kind of keep these efforts up to, like you said, create more opportunities for engagement and activation of these public spaces, but then also the sort of that storytelling and cultural touch point. So it's very exciting.
One other thing I'd like to add, the meaning behind "We Have Arrived" does not just stand for the Vietnamese community and the immigrant community, but it stands for all of us, because we all are made of immigrants, and I hope that it stands for as diverse and accepting as Oklahoma City is.
Well, and just to echo that, I just want to say thank you for reaching out to our office so we could support you all in these efforts to secure, funding opportunities through grants and these sorts of things, and really just kind of bringing our office in pretty early, both you and Gabe, to let us know what you all are up to in parks, and Randy, Melinda, just really appreciate you all. I just think it's exciting, as a student of history, you heard me speak to this earlier, my students are always shook when they learn this history. We just don't teach how we all got here. And they're not just shook by it, they're then like empowered, like that we have arrived. It's not just we have arrived through this journey. It is now what you all are up to in the continued beautification of Class and Corridor. You all are really just focused with this new TIF to think through the economic opportunities of the corridor. Like, we have arrived at this moment, and that's what I think this work of art is going to remind everybody, is that there's so much more work ahead of us, and it's a collaborative one too. And so I just wanted to draw our attention to it today. So just thank you all for engaging Ward 2's council office in it.
Thank you, Councilman.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up is item W. Councilwoman Nice, you wanted to speak to this, and also Brittany Grant signed up to speak as well.
All right. I do want to say that there has been some new leadership changes in our East End OKC Merchant Association, so very grateful for Brittany to be here with us. And Brittany, please, if you don't mind, as we're talking about fundraising and the things that are happening, please tell us how we can support East End OKC Merchant Association.
Absolutely. So good morning to you all. My name is Brittany Grant. I am now the Vice President of our East End Historical District Merchant Association. So the mission of the East End Historic District is to increase the density and diversity of businesses along the Northeast 23rd Street corridor to meet the needs of the surrounding communities and encourage economic growth and tourism. So since being voted in, I've had meetings with the City of Oklahoma City to discuss the branding of the district and working with OG&E to put up banners representing the businesses in our district. So We rode the bus with city leaders such as Councilwoman Nikki Nice and the Assistant City Planner and Embark's own Jason Fairbrush to fully understand the experiences of our community and appreciate the work and the upgrades to our city and our district. So we are currently working with the Matisse Group on a strategic plan that includes metrics on how we plan for the future in supporting our businesses and the beautification, restoring the historical culture of our district, and creating just a destination district for all Oklahomans to enjoy. So we will be a part of the conversation with the streetscape that will be going on. And writing the BRT just kind of gave us real-time experiences to understand what our communities go through, what their experiences are, and making sure that we kind of coincide the streetscape with them putting the new BRT system on 23rd Street. So we are very excited about all of these new additions to our community and uplifting these businesses. We're excited about branding this corridor because we are going to put up these new banners with our logos and with businesses' logos just to understand you have now entered in the East End of Oklahoma City. So we appreciate your support. We thank you for allowing us to be able to build our district and create these economic opportunities for our communities. I live and reside within Ward 7, so we are excited about all of the opportunities that you all have presented for us. So thank you again, and for your support. Sitting here, I can only imagine your work that you do on a day-to-day basis and listening to all of our community. So thank you for that as well and being here today. So that is my update. If you have any questions for me, I would love to answer them.
And they need sponsorship for these banners. So if anyone has a business, would love to support East End, let me know. Or
We have
let Brittany know.
currently secured 10 of our businesses right now, so we're working with the city to at least put those first 10 banners up, and so they are $1,000 a piece for our businesses, and we're working on just phasing out this project. So we're very excited about the sponsorships with our businesses as well as other districts within Oklahoma City. So thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, item X, Councilman Cooper, you wanted to speak to that, and also Brian Weir has signed up to speak on that.
Well, you know what? Let's hear from Brian first, shall we?
Good morning. My name is Brian Weir. I live at 2227 Northwest 38th Street in Oklahoma City. I am a proud resident of Ward 2. I'm also the executive director of the 39th Street District Association. We are a nonprofit dedicated to improving the community and facilities on 39th Street. We want to say thank you to you guys for helping us make a number of accomplishments over the past year, and especially for the financial support and the assistance of our city planners, Donna Cervantes and Kayla Lewis. Those guys are always willing to share knowledge, and their experience has made working with the city and getting things done really easy. We appreciate that. Over the past year, we gained 501c3 status from the IRS. We opened 12 new businesses within the district. I live about 20 feet from the district myself. I can literally walk down the street. There are 5 restaurants that I can walk to, and there are about to be 7. We will be opening a new community center soon. We've initiated the first steps in opening a museum to celebrate our unique culture, and we're really looking forward to that. We're actually at the point that we're collecting artifacts and recording live oral history unique to our community. We have engaged in alliances and collaboration with entities like the Oklahoma Art Guild, a real estate alliance, a softball team, and quite a few animal rescues to throw events and activate things in the district. And nothing makes me happier than walking out on my street and just seeing a ton of people there during the day. Upcoming events are going to include an art show. We have a monthly vendor market. We're going to throw a Route 66 festival, I think, next April. We're going to have a memorial service for a beloved community member in September. And we're going to have a food truck festival and donate the proceeds from that to a charity. We do have some challenges in the district. Vandalism and a couple of potentially violent members of our community who are part of the unhoused population. Thanks to Donna and Kayla, we have the resources and the tools to deal with that effectively. Managing the streetscape is challenging. Some of the sculptures that we placed there are having structural and engineering issues and have fallen down. We're working on getting those repaired. I'm really looking forward to the things that we are going to accomplish and that I'm going to report on in 1 year to you guys. And again, thank you for your continued support. Can I answer any questions?
I think you just did. Well, I don't think I've had a chance to officially congratulate you in person in your new role, so.
It's very new. So, yeah.
I'd heard your name, but I had not had a chance to get to say that, so I think in a public forum, it's important for me to congratulate you on that work.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you. Yeah.
And it is work,
Yes.
as you're seeing. So just know that you have a partner in me as your council person. You're welcome. You know how to get a hold of me through Donna. I'm always available for coffee. I literally have, I don't know that you know this, but office hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. for city staff, for the districts, for neighborhood presidents, residents, anyone, you name it. Boyd Fulton in Ward 2 is ready to schedule a coffee with you. So, I hear some of these concerns from Donna about, some of the needs of the districts, and I've come to her requesting updates about those needs. But sometimes having those kind of boots on the ground from someone who's, the executive director can go a long way as well. So my door is always open, and literally that door is open in my office. You just have to talk to the assistant to get you there. But yeah, happy to chat, happy to sit down and talk more. So just know that collaboration can go both ways here, okay?
Thank you. May I answer any other questions? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, finally, item AU that both Councilwoman Nice and Councilman Cooper referenced.
I actually spoke what I had to say about contracting, so that was my concern, and for the previous as well as this, ensuring how we are very intentional about working through this process of public safety with our many residents, and having that type of contracting ability for communities across our city to be able to participate in this process as well.
Councilman Cooper, did you have something you wanted to say on it? I thought you called this item out, right?
I sure did, Mayor. Okay. I sure did. Thanks for that. No, just wanted to kind of hear maybe from Director Fairbrush a little bit about what we're hoping to accomplish with this item in terms of, well, I'll just let you speak. What are we trying to accomplish? How are we hoping that this partnership can maybe better educate our folks on these 39 different recommendations and their implementation?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question, and good morning, Mayor and Council. Jason Fairbrush, I'm Assistant City Manager. So really, staff is recommending this contract to Council really for a couple reasons. One is, if you'll recall, the consultant recommendation report that we received that included the 39 recommendations. One of those overarching messages or recommendations was to really for the city to be able to broaden its community engagement, broaden its education of the community in terms of what we were doing in the areas of kind of changing the way we respond in some cases when it comes to public safety, specifically mental health, de-escalation, those kinds of things. So it's consistent with that 39 recommendations report that we received from 21CP. And then the other is, I think we just realized this, that, we have a certain segment of the city that, of course, is engaged with our public safety departments, follow a lot of the social media that our departments put out. We also recognize we have a group of, or we have a part of our city that for whatever reason maybe does not intentionally, try to seek out that kind of information. And so we want to be able to really supplement the existing public outreach efforts and public relations efforts that our public safety departments are doing, really to reach a broader audience, reach more of our residents. And so to give you a couple of examples, when it comes to the support that we expect this public relations firm to give us, specifically addressing some of the recommendations in the consultant report,
we think of the Community Public Safety Advisory Board, right? Kind of the reinvented CAB. That board is currently doing work on a monthly basis. They're hearing cases. They are charged as members to go out into their respective areas of the community and have some public education or public outreach events. And so a public relations firm, the idea is really to help us be able to tell that story to our residents. Like, there is work being done. And so that's one example. The other is the Crisis Intervention Advisory Group. You know, we've been meeting quarterly now for some time with this group of mental health experts throughout the community from various disciplines. In those meetings, we as a city, staff, and group, we're talking about different approaches to mental health, what we're doing, how we're changing some of the services that we deliver. And yet, we feel like we need to figure out a way to get the word out. So for example, the mobile integrated health teams that we're standing up, we need to advise our citizens of that, right? We need to be really strategic. We need to let people know that that work is occurring and that those services will be available. And so again, the idea is bringing on a public relations firm to really help us professionally market that and get the word out is what we're trying to accomplish. So those are a couple of examples where the public relations firm will primarily support the public safety partnership. There's also a whole kind of digital aspect to this, you know, as we work alongside the city's PIM department when the new website is developed. You know, we want to make sure we have a really good online presence. But the work will primarily support the public safety partnership. However, we also want this public relations firm to be able to, again, just kind of supplement existing public relations efforts in the public safety departments. I already mentioned the mobile integrated health teams that, thanks to council support, fire department is moving ahead on. But another really practical example is looking within the police department in 911, right? We know that calls for 911 service are continuing to grow. Certainly we could staff and continue to staff and continue to staff to answer all those calls, but there's lots of technology also that is available. Currently, there's the ability to text 911, and so there's some of these things that we ideally will be bringing online in the future with 911 that will make the user experience better, and we would want to be able to get that message out and professionally market that. So again, probably a long explanation, but I want to provide some specific detail as to what we hope this public relations firm will help us accomplish. Again, primarily getting the message out about the work for the public safety partnership, but then also at appropriate times and as needed, supplementing the public relations efforts that are already ongoing in police and fire.
Well, that'll do it. I'll look forward. I mean, I will have more questions as we go along, but I just wanted residents to hear what the intent was, so I appreciate that explanation. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, well, we will now, that was the final item for discussion on the consent docket, so we can now take up the docket for passage. Okay, maybe I'm the one who has to refresh now. I vote aye. Passes unanimously. Okay, the concurrence docket, we have items A through Y we can take with one motion. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Oh, Mark, on the concurrence docket? Thank you. Passes unanimously. Okay, item 11, items for individual consideration. We have item A, an ordinance on final hearing that was recommended for approval, rezoning 7200 North Santa Fe from R1 to AA Councilwoman Nice, Jeff Van Hoos has signed up to speak.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Van Hoos, thank you for your patience. Glad you were able to be here today. And I asked him to be present because of this ordinance that will change this from R1 to AA. And currently, there are some concerns, so I will allow Mr. Van Hoos to speak further to that.
I'm Jeff Van Hoos. Good morning, Mayor Holt, City Manager Freeman, and City Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. 101 Northeast 70th. I live and work in Ward 7. I own the property adjacent to the south of the applicant. And last year, this applicant tried to rezone this from R1 to Ag, claiming that he was going to start a honeybee business. But as it turned out, you don't have to go R1 to Ag to have bees. You can do bees in R1. So I thought this went away. It has not gone away because it's back here today. There have been numerous violations, citations. The citations last year were for junk, illegal trailer storage, inoperable vehicles, illegal storage of containers. There are also those identical that I just listed off are open and brand new, confirmed with Chad Davidson yesterday. It's an eyesore. It's bad for the area. I think that the real reason for rezoning this is the applicant wants less stringent rules from the city. Because if it's Ag, I don't believe you have the right to make him mow it. And I think he can have vehicles and containers and junk and trash. There's a lot of great things happening in this area. 2 blocks north, there's a brand new on-queue that's getting started. A couple blocks north, there's a brand new high school that's getting ready to be built. I've developed a big part of this area along 70th. I think this hurts the property value, and I think it's going the wrong direction for Oklahoma City to rezone this property. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Van Hoos.
I have pictures too. Want me to pass them out?
Please. And I asked him to bring those pictures for you all to also look at. The concern currently for me is the things that were aforementioned. I have no problem with beekeeping. I think it's, when the gentleman brought that forward, I said, oh, that's a great idea, for this part of our community, not a problem. However, to understand that there are concerns as well as citations that have been presented for current property, that's where my hesitancy comes for us to just say automatically, yes, we will rezone this for this applicant. And I say that because of a current property that I am working with in a different part of Ward 7 that within the last couple years, we did say yes to them rezoning that property to AA. And now we're having some issues with all of the things that would be not considered and allowable in that R1 phase. So as you've heard, there are currently notices for junk, illegal trailer storage, inoperable vehicle, and illegal storage of the containers. Those are cases that are currently open. So I am hesitant to move this forward when we have some violations that are currently open for us. Because my question also is, how can we be good neighbors if we're not able to take care of the property we currently have? So I am gonna, is the applicant here? I should have asked that up front, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm not seeing the applicant. I am gonna ask, I wanna be able to talk to this applicant, and I would like to defer it for 4 weeks. Because I want to see what happens as far as being able to respond to the notices, but again, as we bring this back, I want you all to be mindful that this will be the second time that this person has been notified about the current violations on their current property. So I want to make sure I at least give the fair chance for this person, and I know he had a chance already, but I do want to be able to have a conversation. And Mr. Van Hoos, I hope you are okay with us being able to talk through this for a couple more weeks just to hear and see. And if you got your pictures, this is what we're dealing with as far as this property is concerned. You may or may not have, oh, it's for everybody to see, my bad. I have it, and if you can see what we're dealing with for this property, I would like to be able to mitigate these concerns before we either say yes or decline to approve this application. So with that, I will ask that we defer this for 4 weeks and come back to this, and I will have more information and ask for a recommendation of approval or denial of this applicant.
Okay. What's that date, Amy?
Yeah, August 27th.
August 27th, okay. This is a motion to defer item 11A to August 27th.
And my screen says waiting, so I do move that motion.
Okay, motion and a second. Cast your votes.
And I vote yes.
Passes unanimously. Item is deferred. Oh, wait, yeah, we
Ward
didn't get
6.
How did?
I vote yes, yeah. It's refreshing. Oh, there it goes, yeah.
There we go. Passes unanimously. Okay, we finally have all 9 of us here when we have an opportunity to do this, so I want to seize the moment. Councilman Stonecipher, you'd like to be recognized for a motion to reconsider the vote by which the emergency on item 4B failed, correct? So this is
Yes, Mayor, we're just trying to get an emergency installed so we don't have any gaps in what we're trying to do and properly protect the freeway.
Got it. And we voted on this before we even had 7 members in the room without really thinking, and the emergency vote requires 7. This initial motion, however, is a simple majority just to reconsider the item. So we'll get a motion for that. This is the reconsideration.
Excuse me.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Now we are on the vote to adopt an emergency on item 4B. Councilman Stonecipher I presume, wishes to make that motion. This requires 7 votes. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously and with the required 7 affirmative votes. Okay, item 11B is an ordinance on final hearing that was recommended for approval, rezoning 2804 Southwest 43rd from R1 to R2. Councilwoman Hammond, no one has signed up to speak, and Vice Mayor Peck will be presiding from here.
I will move for approval.
And the motion passes. Moving on to item C, Councilwoman Nice. Okay, this is an ordinance on final hearing recommended for approval, rezoning 212 Northwest 122nd Street from R1 to R2. And the purpose of this is to allow duplex development. And I will say there are currently some duplexes that have just been completed and are currently being finished in the same area. And so for this to also be considered R2, I have no problem with approving. So with that, I will move for approval. I vote aye. And the motion passes. If you guys will just bear with me 1 second while I get logged in, please. Okay, moving on to item D, ordinance on final hearing recommended for approval, PUD 2012, rezoning 7001 Northwest 150th Street. Councilman Stonecipher.
It's my understanding that there were no protests. Planning Commission recommended approval. Is anybody here today to speak on this? I'd move for approval at this time, please.
The motion passes. Item E, ordinance on final hearing, recommended for approval, PUD 2015, rezoning 8100 South Santa Fe. Councilman Stone?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Has anyone signed up to speak?
No.
If not, I will go ahead and move for its approval.
And the item passes. Item F is an ordinance on final hearing recommended for approval, rezoning 601 North Check Hall Road from PUD 1666. That's my ward. Councilmember Stone, Councilmember Carter is not here, so could you please move that item for me? I don't believe anybody has signed up to speak.
No one has signed up to speak?
No, sir.
All right. With that, we can go ahead and move for its approval.
And the item passes. Moving on to item G, ordinance on final hearing, recommended for approval, PUD 2019, rezoning 501 East I-44 Service Road. Councilwoman Nice.
I understood this should be deferred. Mr. Zidell? I received a letter, so I'm not sure where we are with this. Oh, okay.
Good morning, Mark Zitzel with Johnson & Associates. We deferred this 2 weeks. We sent a letter in so we can find a time to meet with the neighbors. It was sent over yesterday afternoon.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you receive?
We'll need to vote for that then.
Okay, we didn't get that. I guess it didn't make the mark, so we'll vote on that. So I will ask that we defer this for 2 weeks, please.
and the item is deferred. Item H, ordinance on final hearing, SPUD 1619, rezoning 11145 South Sunny Lane Road. Councilmember Stone.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Has anyone signed up to speak?
Yes, I'm sorry, we do have one. Mr. King has signed up to speak. Would you like to hear from him first?
Yeah, please. Mr. King, if you could come down here. I'm going to go ahead and amend this item with the items that we discussed, a week ago from Saturday. But then I just want you to let me know if I missed anything, okay? All right, so I will make a motion to amend this item with additional TEs. TE 3 would be that the training pad must be at least 100 feet from any residential property lines. TE number 4 would be that the south side of the training pad must use acoustical screening. TE number 5 is that any portable containers must be strapped down to the ground. And TE number 6 is that no modified exhaust is allowed. Mr. King, did I miss any items on there?
No, I believe that was everything.
Okay. I would like to thank Mr. King for meeting me out at the training facility. My goodness, we were out there a while in the rain, but we didn't melt. We were okay. But I appreciate you working on this thing. We're all kind of amazed at how quiet it actually is. I mean, the motorcycles are just idling around for the most part. So I appreciate that. You have any other comments on it, or?
Not a whole lot. I think everybody knows most of my opposition to this. It is still not something, my other neighbors weren't able to be here today. It's still not something we really want next to our residential property. Seeing that facility, while the noise I do think is manageable, that facility is not well kept. The fence is falling down in multiple places. The storage containers are not pretty. There's a porta potty that's just strapped down out there. Thinking about having that directly up against my backyard is not really a pleasant thought. So I still would prefer that this not be placed next to us.
And I get that, and I appreciate your concerns. I think the screening on the south side is going to help that tremendously. Not just from an acoustic standpoint, but from I don't think it's going to be visible from your backyard standpoint. I mean, I've been over there on the location. I went over there a couple of days before we met previous Saturday. And I appreciate you working on this and giving me the input. So, thank you. Is the applicant present, or Nawaz or Everett?
I don't believe so. This is the third consecutive meeting they haven't showed up for.
Yeah. Well, they aren't here to agree to the amended TEs, so I'm going to go ahead and move for denial.
Okay, the motion on the floor is for denial. Is there a second?
Second.
I am frozen. I don't know about anybody else.
I'm frozen as well.
Ward 1? Ward 2?
If I say aye, I'm tied, and seconded, just making sure.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Ward 5? 6? Ward 8?
Yes, please.
And the motion to deny it is approved. Not sure if
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item I, ordinance on final hearing recommended for approval, SPUD 1621, rezoning 1821 North MacArthur Boulevard. Councilman Cooper?
Okay, speaking of deferrals and applicants, is anyone here to speak on the issue?
No, sir.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So, Boyd was able to connect with the applicant yesterday. And council, so here's the deal. So we have been attempting to get a hold of this gentleman, and we hadn't heard back. I'd requested renderings, because there's a streetscape coming to this area on MacArthur, and I just really want to, and planning didn't know that, and I just really want to make sure that whatever they're up to is in accordance with where we're heading there on MacArthur. So we were promised those renderings almost a month ago after I met with them, and we just haven't received them, and then we didn't have any communication, not for a lack of effort on our council office. And so yesterday, Boyd was able to connect with them, and he assured us that he will have these renderings. So my commitment is I would like to have the 2 weeks, and I understand if you all feel otherwise, but I'd like to have 2 weeks to defer this and give him the opportunity to bring those requested renderings. That's not to say that I'm going to like the renderings and support them, but I would like to, Boyd spoke with them, so that at least gives me that. But I just want to say to council, vice mayor, city manager, and then just on the public record that it will be darn near impossible for me to do anything other than what you just saw Councilman Stone do 2 weeks from now, which is to deny this if that applicant has not brought those renderings to us. Like, we need to see what's going on here, and we just haven't seen it. So for now, I would humbly request a 2-week deferral and implore that gentleman to take up Boyd and myself on what we need.
Okay. And the item passes. Item J, ordinance on final hearing recommended for approval, SPUD 1631, rezoning 2800 South Morgan Road. Councilman Carter is going to move this item for me. No one has signed up to speak.
Okay. With no one here and with the recommendation for approval, we will recommend for approval as well.
And the item passes. Item K, ordinance on final hearing recommended for approval, SPUD 1632, rezoning 13541 North Indiana Avenue. Councilwoman Nice.
Thank you. The purpose of this application is to allow office, commercial, and light industrial uses in development. I did get to speak to the applicant on yesterday afternoon, so just expanding the footprint for their current business. So with that, I don't have a problem with that. I'll move for approval.
And the item passes. Item L, ordinance on final hearing recommended for approval, SPUD 1634, rezoning 1514 Northwest 1514 Northwest 17th Street. Councilor Hammond.
Yes, this went before Planning Commission and was approved unanimously, so I will move for approval.
And the item passes. Excuse me. Item M, ordinance on final hearing recommended for approval, SPUD 1635, rezoning 1800 Northwest 12th Street. Councilor Hammond, this one's yours too.
Yes, I will also move approval on this item.
And the item passes. Item N, ordinance on final hearing, recommended for approval, SPUD 1636, rezoning 11212 West Reno Avenue. Councilman Carter will move this item for me. For my ward, no one has signed up to speak.
Well, then we'll move for approval.
Thank you. Who are we missing? Okay, and the item passes. Item O is a couple of items. It's an amendment to remove Lot 6 and then an ordinance on final hearing. And Councilmember Ceasefire, I have a note that you're going to have a few comments about this. And I've also got, I've got Caitlin Turner signed up to speak.
Yeah, and I think Laura McDivitt was going to speak on this briefly, but let me talk about the amendment first off, and that is, it pertains to a building that's on the far northeast corner of the corridor. It has not received zoning yet for a sign, but when a sign is put in there, it will face east-west, and the corridor, Hefner Parkway, runs north-south. So this is an exception, carving out this one small piece of property who will not, from a site standpoint, affect the Hefner Parkway. And so that's the first amendment. Do we need, we don't need an emergency or anything with that, do we? Okay. So at this time, I'd move for the amendment found at O1, please.
Item O1 passes 7-1. Moving on.
I hit the right button and I saw Councilman Ceasefaire's face. I'm so sorry, but I just briefly, I'm being nothing but consistent here. You know how I feel about billboards.
Sure. I understand.
And so it is what it is.
Yeah.
But just so you know.
Well,
thank you.
that is a good segue into O2, which sometimes when you're on the council, it takes years to accomplish something. And this one goes back probably 6 or 7 years ago, and I think it's worth mentioning, Hearts for Hearing, which is an incredible facility for children who have impaired hearing, came to me with concerns about electronic signs that that people were attempting to place on the Hefner Parkway that would affect their hearing, their devices. And we went through litigation. We dealt with changes in the sign code. We dealt with a United States Supreme Court case. It took a long time to get here, but I am very proud of the fact that when I first started looking at this, I did some research, and there's a reason they called this Hefner Parkway. There were, and it dates back to a 1994 article, and I think it was Steve Lackmeyer that wrote it, where the neighbors over on Grand, number one, they didn't want an exit, and number two, they didn't want development going on it. They wanted to be a part of the park, and so thus it had the name Hefner Parkway instead of highway. So today we are preserving what people from the early 90s wanted. We're keeping our word. We're keeping our commitment to do what's right. We help children in need, and so I'm very proud to move this item forward at this time.
Well, and on that note, good job, because you have stuck with this for a very long time, and I just want to affirm you in that, particularly in light of that previous vote. But no, good job, and you've gone up against some pretty tough forces in those. I've been in the rooms with you. We've seen it publicly, so commendation.
Thank you.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor. And the item passes. Now, item P, this is the third of 3 meetings on this item as it relates to the updating of the design review committees. There's no presentation today. We can just take a motion if there are no council comments. And the item passes. Moving on to item Q, which is generally the same topic as P and can be handled in the same fashion. If I could get a motion if there are no comments. Are we locked up again, or is it just me? Oh, okay, there it goes. And the item passes. Moving on to item R. This is an ordinance to be introduced and set for public hearing on August 13th and final hearing on August 27th. There is a presentation on this?
Yes, Chris Browning, our Utilities Director, will introduce this item.
Good morning, Chris Browning, Utilities Director. The item before you for your consideration is a change in the municipal code, particularly chapters 18 and 29, and this change would be more consistent with state law. Currently, the code requires the journeyman electricians and mechanical service and repair workers to hold not only the journeyman license respective to their trades, but to also have a contractor's license. State law requires those trades to have contractor's license if they're working on somebody else's property. If the employees are working on the employer's property, such as my staff working on my facilities, they're not required to have a contractor's license by state law. So we're asking your consideration to change the municipal code accordingly so that they are not required to have a state license, state contractor's license, if they're working on our facilities. Be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Chris.
Just for clarification, is that just related to city staff or is that contractor staff citywide?
Just city staff. If they're working on only our facilities, we would not require a contractor's license. The city code would not require a contractor's license.
I guess my question is, why don't we do that for the staff of other businesses in Oklahoma City? But we can take that up at a future date.
Most other businesses provide those services to customers. They don't provide them to their own facilities.
We'll talk soon. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
If there's no future comment, we can take a motion to introduce. And the item passes. Moving on to item 11S, this is the public hearing regarding the ordinance related to the oil and gas amending Chapter 37 of the Municipal Code. This is the second of 3. I don't believe we have anybody signed up to speak, do we?
No, we don't.
Okay. And so with that, we'll close this public hearing and move on then to item T. Item T1 is regarding dilapidated structures. Has anyone signed up to speak?
No, they haven't.
All right, closing the public hearing, we can take up item 2, the resolution declaring structures as dilapidated. And the item 2 passes. Item U1 is a public hearing regarding, dilapidated structures also. Item T was in a historic district, so my apologies for missing that. So we are on item U1, public hearing regarding dilapidated structures. No one has signed up to speak.
No, they haven't.
So we will close the public hearing and move on to item 2, the resolution declaring structures as dilapidated. And that passes. Moving on to item 11V1, public hearing regarding unsecured structures.
No one's signed up.
Thank you. So we'll move on to item 2, resolution declaring structures as unsecured. Now, item 1 was amended earlier, but we're good to go on item 2. And that passes. Item W1, public hearing regarding abandoned buildings as modified earlier in the meeting. City Clerk, has anyone signed up to speak?
No, they haven't.
So we will close that public hearing and move on to item 2, resolution declaring those buildings as abandoned. And the item passes. Excuse me. Moving on to item X, this is the second meeting on this, and it was already presented. So item 1 is a public hearing. City Clerk, has anyone signed up to speak?
No, they haven't.
All right, so we will close that public hearing and invite a motion for item 2, the joint resolution. And the item passes. Item 11Y is a public hearing regarding amending the June 18th resolution. I understand that this one has a presentation, Mr. City Manager?
Yes, Chris York, our Budget Director, will just give us an update on this amendment to the fire sales tax resolution.
Thank you, City Manager. Very minor adjustment with this resolution this morning. And so this is an adjustment to the fire sales tax, and what it's looking to do is fire has a listed project, Exhibit G, where they can purchase technology, software systems, and equipment, but that exhibit does not allow for the training of those types of pieces of equipment or software. So the update today would be to broaden the language of Exhibit G to allow them to also train folks on those systems that they're purchasing. There is no increase in the approved authority amount. Council approved a $1.3 million not to exceed amount back on June 18th. And so there's no change to that. It just adds an additional eligible type of expense for that specific project. We will bring this item back to you on August the 13th for final consideration.
Thank you very much. So, has anyone signed up to speak?
No, they haven't.
All right, we'll move on to item 2. And the item passes. Moving on to Z, it's a resolution authorizing flexibility to reallocate coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. Mr. City Manager, I understand there's a presentation.
Yes, Aubrey McDermott, our Assistant City Manager, she's been helping to lead this program and is just going to give us the opportunity. We had a lot of conversations around what are we going to do when we get to the end of this. We have to have funds obligated by December 31st, and so this will just give us some flexibility to handle that, but I'll let Aubrey describe what we're proposing.
Sure. Good morning, Vice Mayor and Council. As the City Manager said, we're kind of nearing some of our deadlines for the Arpa program. those deadlines coming up on us are that we have to have all of our funds obligated by the end of this year and spent by the end of next year. So we've been going back through our plan, all of our approved projects, making sure they're on track. We feel like most of our projects are on track for meeting these deadlines. But in the case of other jurisdictions looking at managing those funds, making sure that every single penny that we've allocated can be spent, we're taking this item to you to allow us to provide a little bit of flexibility within those plan categories. If you'll remember, we had 3 plan categories that we had established. So as projects are getting nearer towards completion, those initial cost estimates that we'd had for projects, some of them are coming in a little bit under, some may be coming in a little bit over. As that happens, we want the flexibility to be able to move those funds so that we can complete the projects within that plan category and expend all those funds. At the same time, there could be projects, we don't anticipate that there will, but there could be projects that can't meet our spending deadlines. So in that case, what this resolution does is it adds additional projects to those city restoration project lists that you all have approved 21 projects through. These projects are projects that have been added to that list, vetted and sorted based on that same prioritization criteria that we've used before. But these are projects that we could pull even up to the very last minute and apply ARPA funds to in the case that any other projects are not able to be completed by those spending deadlines. So this resolution does 2 things. It allows us to move funds within the category, not exceeding the category amounts, and allows the city restoration project list to be expanded with some potential additional projects if the situation arises at the end that we need to shift money to a different project. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I have a backup here from Finance too, Ms. Lori Hurd, who's worked on this extensively.
All right.
Thanks,
Aubrey.
Hold on. I just want to publicly acknowledge what those categories are. Additional projects if funding allows for public safety communications center system and facility lighting upgrades, river sport renovations, regional transit authority land purchase, transit fleet, fairgrounds connector, the Coliseum, grant match on infrastructure investment in Jobs Act projects, and Gaylord pedestrian sky bridge. Is that correct?
That's correct. If you have any questions about those projects, I will do my best to answer.
Well, I don't have questions about these projects. I'm just curious how these were prioritized instead of some of our other projects that we know are also a part of these particular categories that could use some funding.
Sure. We keep and maintain that list that we've put together from the beginning. So what we've done is we pulled projects out that we could take funding and apply it to quickly, that it could be spent quickly. Most of these projects are already projects that are in the works that already have funding from other sources. They would be kind of the last minute, we can add funding to them. The other projects that were previously on the list are projects that don't have additional funding that really are beyond the scope of what we could do with ARPA time-wise. So they just fell off in terms of being ineligible as a backup project.
Okay, thank you for that. My concern is how we continue to use these ARPA funds in relation to what the definition of ARPA was intended to do. And those are going to continuously be my critiques of, as a city entity, how we choose to prioritize certain projects in comparison to others of understanding, again, why ARPA was created in order to benefit most of our distressed communities. And for specifically these particular projects, I don't see any of that being defined. But that's, I mean, we can go back and forth to say if it is or if it's not or whose priority it is. But I just want to continue to challenge how we use ARPA fiscal recovery funds and who they actually benefit in the processes of why they were allocated to our city in the first place.
Thank you, Aubrey.
Okay, thank you.
We just need a motion.
Yep.
And the item passes 6-1. Moving on to item AA is item 1, the collective bargaining agreement with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. Executive session is not requested by staff. Craig, did you have any?
Just Trey Box is here. He's our Assistant Director for the Department of Human Resources, and really appreciate the work from Trey and the team, as well as recognizing ASME's work in helping us to get to an agreement here. And so I'll let Trey just give a quick overview on what we're proposing.
You bet. Thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor, Council, and thank Councilperson Hinkle for doing the council observance this year for the contract. It was very helpful. So we're happy to have before you a ratified agreement from ASME. It reflects a 3.62% across the board pay increase, would be retroed back to July 1st, 2024. We also, you'll see in that, there's a second, third, fourth shift differential increase. This was actually advocated by the department directors for some hard-to-fill shifts, so we're going to have a 25% increase on those shifts. There's also the classification changes. As you recall, we brought earlier in the year some changes that reflected classification changes after the class comp study was complete. Those are reflected in this agreement as well. And then on Addendum B, you'll see that we have deleted pay ranges 401, 402, 403, 404, and 405. Those pay ranges have not been in use for some time, and so we wanted to update the contract to make sure that it reflected what our pay ranges were for the general pay plan folks. And then finally, insurance premiums are held constant with current contracts, so there's no changes there. So with that, that's pretty much the highlights of the changes. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Trey.
Thanks, Trey.
So we just need a motion on item 1 then.
Yes.
And that passes. Then we'll move on to item AB. Mr. City Manager, you want to talk about that
Sure.
one? and
A, B, and AC both are consistent with AA. Historically, what we've done is provided for our management employees and management executive and non-represented employees the same increase that we've provided with ASME, and that's what A, B, and AC will do.
So we can take a motion on AB. AB passes. We can move on to AC now. Someone would like to make a motion?
Before we do that, I just want to make mention of, as we continue to look at our pay matrix, of how, I know I bring it up every year, but I want to continue to uplift the fact that we still have categories that are under at least $15 an hour as a beginning hourly wage. I'm not sure if those categories may still exist as far as the job description and/or definition, but grade 601 and grade 602, A1 for both, are, and B2 and C3 for 601 are all under that same category of $15 an hour. So just curious how we will continue to work on improving that for our city, and if this is a category that needs to be eliminated as far as how we define the pay for our staff for the city.
You know that one, Trey? You have that one?
I can just say, I know that we've been really working hard on the general pay plan. I think you're referencing the non-general pay plan. And we have not had traditionally, I guess, we haven't had in some time any positions that are on the general non-represented pay plan. That has taken exception, this most recent change with fire, with having EMTs, and so I don't believe that they're going to be at that pay range, so we will look to see about updating that as well.
Okay, and I, just for clarification, because I may need help on this too, I see what you're talking about, but, the particular page that I referenced, it has a title of municipal counselor pay matrix.
That's correct. So the municipal counselor would have their own pay matrix, the auditor's office would have their own pay matrix.
Gotcha.
And so they set those salaries. We would
Okay.
not be able to adjust those.
Thank you. So I wanted to, again, reemphasize that that's the category
Okay.
in which I was actually referring to, where I see that the hourly wage is less than, as far as the other governmental or non-governmental, whatever you just said, sorry. Those, I acknowledge what it is for those, and they are well over $15 an hour, so thank you for that. But I do want to, again, bring reference to, we still have some work to do in a couple of categories. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we can take a motion on this item. And the item passes. Item AD1 is a joint resolution with the OCMFA. Executive session has not been requested by staff.
I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session on this item.
So moved. And the item fails 5-2. So we can then move back to item AD1. Take a motion on the joint resolution. And the item passes 5-2. Moving on to item AE is a request for executive session on advice of municipal council to receive confidential communications as its attorney concerning the case of Ashley Mays, Curtis Gonson, Ashley Mays and Curtis Gonson's parents. That item passes, and just as a reminder, we will take executive sessions just prior to adjournment. So moving on to item AF is also a request for executive session. Oh, that one was struck. I'm sorry. I apologize. All right. Moving on to item AG is also a request for executive session regarding the Southeast Oklahoma Power Corporation case. And the item passes. Item 11AH is claims recommended for denial. And the item passes. Item AI is claims recommended for approval. Executive session has not been requested. And the item passes. Moving on to item 12, comments from council. Ward 1.
Yes, Vice Mayor, thank you. Last week I had the honor to attend the Marucci High School World Series down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and where the Oklahoma City U.S. Nationals high school baseball team that was represented here, who had never won, Oklahoma had never won a game in that World Series, I was told, and they ended up taking the whole thing. So, and they won the home run derby. So I just wanted to give a huge shout out to those guys. They played a hard deal. We played in rain and lightning, and let me tell you, if anybody complains again about Oklahoma City roads, they just need to go to Baton Rouge. Holy crap. But I just wanted to give a shout out to those guys. They did an amazing job, and it was a blast. So thank you.
Ward 2.
Thanks, Vice Mayor. I wanted to say thank you to OCU for inviting me to speak to some high schoolers immediately after our last council meeting who might be going to that school. They call them the Emerging Stars, and I got to educate them on how MAPS works and the bond works. I got to hear what some of their priorities are, and that was really cool. So that's one thing I wanted to kind of note. I just have a list here. The next one is I want to say thank you to Zach and Lindsay from Visit OKC, because you might recall when we were having that conversation about the hotel motel tax and introducing that, Zach made a commitment to having conversations with our historic commercial districts and immediately reached out to Ward 2 and to Amanda Bleakley in the Paseo, and last week we had that meeting, and it was scheduled for an hour. We ended up having a 2-hour kind of deep diagnostic in terms of the administrative needs of the Paseo Arts District. I mean, think of it this way. Paseo hosts this incredibly successful, arguably renowned Paseo Arts Festival. But until this meeting, there had not been a conversation with Paseo Arts District in terms of how many art vendors, for instance, are where they're staying when they come to town, right? There had not been a deep dive into where are they staying? And Amanda immediately came with the data. She was like, they're staying overwhelmingly, by the way, at home shares, but they're also staying at the Embassy and Hampton, and that's important data for us to know. And that's just the vendors, the artists, right? That's to say nothing of there's no telling how many hundreds, maybe thousands of people who are coming to attend, right, to purchase from those vendors, and where are they staying? So I really do want to thank Amanda with Paseo, and then Zach and Lindsay for, again, a 2-hour deep dive into that data, because now we can start having conversations about the contributions then thusly that Paseo Arts District makes to the hotel motel industry, right? Through not just events like the Paseo Arts Festival, but First Friday and any other sort of things that when people learn that we have Frida's or Oso or Sauced, which now has arcades in it, and they come in from Lawton and they want to stay the night, like that's who we are in Paseo. And now I look forward to doing a very similar deep dive with Zach and Lindsay for the rest of Ward 2's commercial districts from there. If that's true for Paseo, think of LGBT Pride on 39th Street. Think of how many people are coming in and staying the night at all kinds of hotels and contributing again to that tax, that hotel motel tax. So I'm really excited about that, because now we can start talking about how do we stabilize the administrative needs of the people who are doing this gargantuan work to host and coordinate these meetings. How can we help better meet their administrative needs and the needs in the district? So I really want to thank everyone for that. Congratulate everybody. MAPS 4 Phase 1 sidewalks are steamrolling ahead. 30th and Chartel, if you're heading north from that intersection, we're repairing that intersection and making it ADA compliant. And there are brand new sidewalks heading north along Chartel, heading to Harding, right? Alongside community gardens, right? That's the sort of councilperson I am, is I'm like the deep dive in where every street I'm thinking about. It's just beautiful to see those sidewalks in front of the community gardens there. Janet Jackson, I don't know if y'all heard, came to town. And if you got to see her on Friday, I was honored to be in that Paycom Center with you. Janet Jackson told us at the concert she is 58 years young. And it gave me such hope that if I look even a fourth of what that woman was like, but it's her voice. It was her voice. I mean, her voice. Mayor Holt and Rachel Holt were there, and I turned to Rachel as the two of us were kind of standing side by side dancing to these songs. I just turned to her. I was like, "Where is this voice coming from?" Oh my Lord, what a talent. And don't even get me started on the dancing, like what she was doing. My goodness, it was just, and the crowd was singing along through album after album. It was just so cool to see OKC host the sort of worldwide celebrity that when I was a child growing up to Rhythm Nation or the album Janet, I never imagined we'd have Janet Jackson here. And there she was, right over there. So that was cool. Cool's not, it's an understatement. The next day I attended, as will surprise no one, the Oklahoma City Horror Convention. City Manager Freeman, calm down, I know you're shocked. This is now my third or fourth year to attend, and this used to be in Remington Park. They hosted it this year, the convention, at our MAPS 3 Convention Center. And I really appreciated the venue change. It was so cool to see, think about it, Janet Jackson Friday, the horror convention Saturday, and that night at Paycom, right next door, Olivia, is it Rodrigo? Okay, I'm not cool enough to sometimes get all the names right. But there were all of her young fans and their families going into Paycom as my next door neighbor Liz and I were leaving the convention center. That's just not what I thought was coming when I was a child to Oklahoma City. But I got to meet Miko Hughes, who plays Gage in Pet Sematary, little child. So cool to meet him. He also played Dylan in Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which is a film that's almost too smart for its own good. So got to meet him, talk with him. He also was on Full House, for those of you who are not horror people, Michelle's friend. Alex Vincent, who plays the young protagonist of Child's Play, Andy, he was here. So to Christine Elise, who is his kind of co-protagonist in the second Child's Play film. Those two films, or part two especially, after the horrific events of the first film, Andy finds himself in a foster care system, which is underfunded and overwhelmed. He also finds himself surrounded by adults who refuse to listen to his understanding of the world. I saw that movie when it came out, I believe in 1990, so I was 8. It didn't scare me. I instinctively understood the message it was trying to get across, that when we don't listen to children who are experiencing traumatizing events. Now here it's a supernatural story, so of course it's metaphor. It's metaphor, it's not literal, there are no killer dolls, right? But it was a metaphor, and I understood instinctively as a child, as most children do, the kind of horrors of navigating the world. And that's what Child's Play 2 is about, and I got to thank Christine and Alex for their roles in that. By the way, that film ends in a toy store factory where I think the killer doll Chucky becomes, again, a metaphor for corporate greed and consumerism at the expense of our children. Kane Hodder, who's played Jason since part 7, was there. I believe he was on the news. And I'll just conclude by saying this. Wes Craven's New Nightmare, where Miko stars, also features Oklahoma's own Heather Langenkamp, one of the original Final Girls. This is not removed from Oklahoma. I think that if you grow up here and you endure tornadoes, you know horror. You know horror at its natural roots. But you also know what it's like to stand up and face it. And I think that's what Heather Langenkamp brought to Nightmare on Elm Street in 1984, its sequel in 1986, Part 3, and then again to Wes Craven's New Nightmare in 1994. And that concluding remark, to give you all an update on Mama Cooper, she came over last Wednesday. Her hand is still healing from her fall in December. I actually sent a lift out to Midwest City to bring her to Paseo. She's still not quite comfortable. She drives around the neighborhood a little bit, but she came out. We went and got some lunch, and we've been working our way through the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. So we actually watched Part 3 together. And it's just so cool. Then we watched the Republican convention together the night that J.D. Vance accepted the nomination. That's who my mom and I are. We watch Democrat, Republican conventions. We talk about it. We watch Nightmare on Elm Street. We used to watch Janet Jackson in concert as children, on TV. We like culture. So I'm glad to see that OKC is embracing and accepting of the different cultures that make up human creation. So thank you.
Ward 4? Ward 5, 6, 7?
Thank you. I just wanted to say congratulations to the fifth quarter. We passed it in the early part of our agenda. I know they have been working hard to work on being the owners of the fire station that they occupy in order to help train our potential and current firefighters that work for the city. So congratulations to them. I know this has been well earned for them to do the work, again, to be able to acquire now the property where they have been leasing from the city. So I know they'll be able to do great things with that particular space. I also wanted to shout out the Summer of Soul that happened, not this past Friday, but the Friday before at Scissortail Park. And it was packed for a night of R&B, live music. And I just want to send my gratitude to one of the organizers for that. Jay Stu is what he's affectionately called, and he works for Myriad Gardens as well as with Scissortail to get our bands and the things that we had as far as being able to enjoy a night outside in Scissortail Park. So thank you for the programming that we were able to experience on that evening. As we were talking through earlier, it made me write down some notes and see how we can work through this. When it comes to us being able to go through our zoning ordinances for final hearing, for us to possibly understand, I'm sure all of these things work together, but how do we acknowledge those that may have current violations as we're going through the process of rezoning? I think it's very important for us to know if there are some current issues. And it may happen, I'm not sure, but I would like for us to really dive into how we can make sure we're protecting ourselves as well as our residents if we are allowing for someone to change that zoning that may be totally opposite of what they already have. So just being able to work through that, I would hope that we can continue to look at how that process will continue to work for us. And I know I probably gave y'all a week or two without talking about these Lottie bike lanes, but I'm talking about it again. And I bring it up, I did have a meeting privately or a update with all of those involved with Public Works to planning, but I think it's very important for me to also acknowledge and say this openly too. We are still working through the process of completing the project, and I have difficulty with the fact that we are giving warnings to residents who may be parking in so-called bike lane that's not fully constructed, and without being able to properly educate and or finish the project. So enforcement is difficult for me to say needs to happen when we have not finished the things that we need to do to say it is complete, and here is how you use it, and here is how we will honor to ensure that we provide the access you need for it. And we haven't completely done that, so it's really hard to understand why we are giving warnings at all, or any type of touch of enforcement for something that we haven't completed. Now, mind you, I understand, folks still parking at the curb, and we have stripes there, but again, we haven't completed it. And we're still working through the process of talking to and educating our residents about what it is, and also still working through plans on how to perfect it and make it better and comparable for our neighbors who live within these same areas of our community. So I did want to mention that again, because I
I've been receiving text messages from some of my residents that reside in that part of our community about what is continuing to happen to them. And I'm hoping we will continue to work with them instead of telling them you can't do that, instead of us being able to just work with them to complete it and fulfill our obligation to them. I wanted to uplift the name of Sonia Massey and say that what happened to this young woman in the beginning of the month speaks to the fear of community when you call and ask for help. And for this woman to be shot in her face and killed immediately is very unfortunate, and I wouldn't recommend anyone watch that video because it is horrific to see, and I refuse to watch any more of these types of incidents because it takes a toll on you as a person who experiences or has experienced a community that has been objectified and or not listened to. So for this woman, 36, to now leave her children behind is very unfortunate. And because of her calling for help, and when that door was open, she said, "Please don't harm me." But before all was said and done, she was dead in her own kitchen. So I hope we will all take this as a lesson of how we work better on community and neighborhood policing and interactions with our residents, and that these types of incidents will not continue to be talked about and or seen throughout our cities, throughout our nation, throughout our world. And lastly, I wanted to mention this, and I've been trying to figure out how to carefully construct my words, but I don't want them to be not heard. I attended the State of the City last week, and I want to thank the mayor for his comments and also acknowledge the fact that there were a couple names omitted from that State of the City, which is fine. And those names were Nikki Nice and Jo Beth Hammond. And again, I don't have a problem with that, but I think it's very important for it to be said and understood. The reason that, and I'm not speaking for her, I'm speaking for myself, the reason there continues to be dissent is because our names are continuing to be omitted from conversations. The idea of understanding what's not being done with us is being done to us engages the fact that while we were hoping to have conversations, especially as the potential holders of what was approved, we weren't a part of those conversations. Instead of just helping us to understand where we were not included in those conversations, which again eliminated the voices of our residents being able to sit at the table and at least understand where we were and what we were moving forward to do. I also want to say that while it was also said that we are a nonpartisan body, and how we are working together and how we have leadership that collaborates, the patriarchal misogyny of what was and was not said, the partisanship and the separation of our council members was evident also in what was said on last Tuesday. So I say and leave with this lasting quote, because, appropriating Drake to come out and then eliminating the names of conversations and also mentioning the things that are happening in Northeast and Southwest Oklahoma City, that was because of JoBeth Hammond and Nikki Nice's advocacy. So I will say our names for us, and we'll continue to bring our folding chairs to the tables that we have been omitted from. And I'll leave with this quote that I heard last week: the true measure of the strength of a leader is who you lift up. Thank you.
Ward 8.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I wanted to thank the council for approving the architectural services contract for our new fire station number 10, which is in Ward 8. It is an incredible part of town and with respect to the single-family, multifamily commercial development that's going on out there, and so it's a much-needed station. I also, you may not remember, but Clay Farhaw donated part of the land to make this possible, and so I wanted to thank Clay and his family for keeping the fire station number 10 moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move to executive session, I've just a couple of comments. Yesterday, Councilmember Carter and others and I attended the groundbreaking for fire station number 31. It is a replacement of an existing fire station with 2 bays, with a new station that will have 5 bays. So it will be able to continue to serve the area that has grown around it in those 50 years that it has been open. We look forward to the axe cutting of the ribbon on that one summer of next year. And then also I just wanted to mention a reminder that our planners are requesting feedback for Oklahoma City's Vision Zero plan, a data-driven effort to reduce auto-related fatalities and increase pedestrian safety. With that, there are public outreaches that are being scheduled. For Ward 3, there is one coming up on August 14th at the Canadian Valley Technology Center. It is open to the public. I don't have the correct start time with me, but if you can follow the city on social media, that will be updated, and I will post something as soon as I have the correct time as well. And with that, I apologize, we have citizens to be heard next. Mr. Ronnie Kirk is the only one that has signed up to speak today. Mr. Kirk.
My name is Ronnie Kirk. My address is 2328 North Missouri. Oklahoma City is one of the fastest. It's rated number 24 throughout the country for one of the fastest growing cities. Our police chief, Wade Garley, he did so well throughout the years holding our city and our state together. The young lady in Pennsylvania shot in the face. She was shot on the left side. That means she was looking down. For voicing us freedom, Second Amendment, freedom of speech, she was killed, rebuked. There's not no reason to kill nobody. And those pamphlets you got there, there's some ways that our police department can come together. Everybody got those body cams. All the police got them. Why would one have them on, the other have them off? When an officer go to respond to help out another, he should turn his on. So when they get there, his will be on also. They shouldn't be able to turn them off until their Amanda rights are read. Then they can turn them off, go to lunch, go do anything they want to do. So if we do those things, to get our city together, so everybody be on the same page about these body cams. Nobody will be left behind. You know, when they was off, when they was on, where the people was at, you know. Once they're on their own lunch break, goes home, that's fine. But while they're on duty and they respond to a call, turn them on. Turn them on. I want to say thank y'all again.
30 seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kirk. With that, we will recess to executive session and return to adjourn at the conclusion of our meeting. Thank you. We reconvene from our executive session and adjourn.